Hey everyone, and welcome back to our DC Films podcast. This is episode 23. It's been a while for us since we recorded, even though you guys just saw that, just a few days ago we put up our Batman v Superman commentary. That was actually recorded like a month ago. I was having some trouble with Warner Brothers and their copyright. When as some of you have noticed, I tried uploading it a number of times, and it was taken down by Warner Brothers. So I had to edit it a bunch of times. So now it's finally up so you guys can see. But that was again like a month ago. So it's been a while for us who have actually been here to record these podcasts. So joining me are some familiar faces. So if you guys want to go around and reintroduce yourselves to the listeners.
Hello everyone, my name is Artyom and I'm Grey Conwell on Tumblr.
Hey everyone, I'm Fatma and I'm Stay Awesome Gotham on Tumblr.
Hi, I'm Katie and I'm Story Advocate on Tumblr.
Hi, I'm Danielle and I'm Social Justice League on Tumblr.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm The Endeavor on Tumblr.
All right, thank you guys for joining me. I know we had like a really random conversation that had nothing to do with the DCEU right now. But yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. So this week, since there hasn't really been a whole lot of news in terms of DCEU lately, I thought it'd be fun to do another Q&A where we just take questions from you guys, whether it's on Tumblr or Twitter or whatever, and just anything you guys wanted to know, with our thoughts on various subjects, we can just go ahead and do that. So that's just going to be the majority of the conversation today, and if at any point you guys hear Danielle, Katie, Batman, if any of you guys have any questions you guys want to know, go ahead and do that too. Just make it a more casual conversation, because I feel like at least I've been really down on Justice League lately, and it'd be nice to be talking about something positive for a change, so. Yeah, so,
I don't know how to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Neither do I.
Okay.
Oh, wait, guys, today, because I had some time at work to actually go on Tumblr during my break. I was on, and someone posted, I don't know whether you know, You've Doom does a roll jerk, he's really cool. But he answered a question that someone had over Justice League, and he was like, why did you just like bring it all back at the end of his ask? He put he cited Artem's Twitter thing, and then I was just looking through it and I was like, what the hell? Why did you have to open this wound again? I thought I just about managed to close it.
Had just barely gotten around to watching it, and they're like,
Yeah.
I just started watching it and I'm halfway through and I'm noticing all this stuff is cut, and he's like, you don't know the half of it. It was awesome.
And then when he linked that video where it's the deleted scenes without the VFX, I could just hear the music that whoever it was put it, and then I was like, oh my god, I missed this. So I opened up my Flickster account because of the Blu-rays that I've had, and I just started watching Batman v Superman in the background, and I was just like, I'm not even watching it, but just hearing the dialogue and hearing the music and just hearing everything work together just made me feel so happy yet so sad at the same time.
Welcome to our
But yeah, that was my reminiscing of, the catastrophe that is Justice League.
Yeah, I mean, again, and I don't like fully hate the movie. There's still a lot that I still enjoy, but it's, for me, like, the negatives outweigh the positives. So like when like everything that's bad, like that, I remember more than the things I liked, and that sucks, because walking out of the movie, I was focusing more on the things that I enjoyed, like the banter between the League for the most part, and then like the scenes with Aquaman and Mira, and like the Amazon fight scene, and the League fighting Superman minus the one "Do you bleed" line or whatever. It's, like, I enjoyed a good portion of the movie, but everything that was wrong with it just sticks out way more to me. So that's why it's hard for me to enjoy it as much, because it's just like when those scenes come up, it's just like, well, here we go. I just
it feels too tainted for me. I have a hard time enjoying anything in it, even the stuff that I know is Zach's, because it just gets undercut every time by something else. So yeah, I can't watch it anymore.
Yeah.
Well, so much for a Justice League commentary then.
I will say, stare on my face the whole time. So
Remember at the beginning when I was dead again? I was like, I could have bet £100 on this, saying that they will never release a Snyder Cut. And then I saw how much they made, and I was like, maybe I wouldn't put that bet just yet. And I'm glad I didn't, because, 600 million for a Justice League movie is dire. So I'm
it's
sure
pathetic. That's what it is. It's pathetic.
They did it, and now is it what? Just a minute and 51 seconds of extra footage or whatever.
Oh yeah, for the yeah.
And I just feel like, why? Even the bad news that gave me hope.
I know.
Didn't even work.
And that's the thing. It's like, honestly, like, I want to see Zach's true vision for this movie, but I'm not holding my breath for his cut because I just feel like he's just over the whole situation. And
I don't think
for his sake he needed
to do it.
yeah, and recently, so as you guys know, I started writing for that comic book debate website, and recently they had Clay Enos, you know, the DCEU set photographer, on as a guest, and he's pretty close with Zach, and even he was saying, like, guys, kind of, he didn't say this like word for word, but like he was kind of just like stop focusing on release the Snyder Cut and stuff like that. Just focus, like, be happy for what Zach's gonna be doing next. Like, he's gonna be making more of these layered films, just maybe not DC or superhero movies, but he's still gonna be making these films. So be looking forward to that, and then I don't necessarily look forward to something that the situation is kind of over and done with, like, movie came out and that's it. So, and that's kind of where I'm at too, where like I want to see his cut and I want to see his vision, but I'm not gonna necessarily like fight for it, especially if it's something that the whole situation is just a bad situation for him. I don't want to like I don't want to like force him to be like, hey, you must release this for us, you owe us, like some people have been, and that kind of sucks because I think some people forget that just because like they mess with his movie, like, he went through a serious tragedy, and I think he just I don't know Zach on a personal level, but it just seems like he wants to step away from Justice League, period. And yeah, I can tell he appreciates the fans, but he wants to be able to move on with his life, and people just kind of won't let him. And I kind of feel bad for the guy. Like, he tried making this movie, his daughter unfortunately committed suicide, and then just the Warner Brothers kind of took over and revamped his movie into something that wasn't his vision. So for him, I just don't know if that's something he would even really want to be involved with moving forward, or even involved with Warner Brothers moving forward. So, I
just think there's only so much he can legally do, and I think that a lot of the reason he's being quiet is because of that. And I think that, you know, everybody needs to be just patient and kind of like, it's a wait and see situation. I think the people who are making noise, like, you know, the modest sort of rumble of we would really like a Snyder Cut, are doing good work, and I'm really impressed with that. But, you know, getting up every day and screaming about it at anyone who will listen is not really all that productive at this point. Because Warner Brothers is going to do what it's going to do. That's the problem with these franchise movies, is they have a stranglehold on this story. They get these characters whether they deserve them or not.
And that's
Agreed.
the thing that,
I agree with that.
And I want to see a Zack Snyder Cut more than anything, but I don't want to like force Zack into a situation where like I just don't want to like guilt trip him into like, even though it has nothing to do with him and his decision making, it's Warner Brothers. But I don't want to like force him back into a situation that makes him uncomfortable in any way, because I don't want like.
I would understand that. I think honestly, like if by some miracle, and I do mean miracle, Warner Brothers suddenly went, okay, fine, whatever. Zach could come back and finish it if he wants to, and we'll just push that out to DVD or whatever. Like, if by some miracle they did that, and if he actually said, I don't think that I can do that, then I would totally support him, because you're right, his emotional health comes before anything else. Even, you know, the final part of his trilogy that I'm really desperate to see. But at the same time, yeah, if he felt that that was beyond him and that was not something that was good for him or his family at that point in time, then I would be behind him 1,000,000,000%. And I'd say, okay, because then it's not WB just lying to us and selling us this crap product, pretending that it's something better, you know, and telling us it's one thing when it's actually another. Then it's truly Zach going, this is not in my capacity right now, and I will always support that. And I think in some ways that would be more of a peaceful way of not getting it. I could be at peace with that if I didn't get it then, because I know it would be for a better reason. Yeah. Right now it just feels like it's because WB is just pulling stupid things, trying desperately to get on top, and they're just sinking themselves doing it. And it's like, you guys have broken faith and trust with a lot of your fans, and that's just really not cool. So there's a lot of anger that comes with that. But yeah, if Zach said he couldn't do it, I'd be like, okay, don't do it then. It's fine. It's cool. That's more important than anything else.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Personally, for me, I feel like I don't care if it's Justice League or if it's The Last Photograph or whatever it is. Like, I just want to see him do a movie again, basically. Yeah. And whichever one of these comes first, that's fine.
Yeah.
And that's why,
whatever he does next, I'll be there. So
yeah, and that's what excuse me, and that's what Clint Enos was more or less saying. Sorry. And that just look forward to Zach's next movie because he's gonna keep making these deep, layered movies that you can tear apart to pieces in a creative way. I mean, and that you break the layer upon layer upon layer.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily gonna be a DC movie, and honestly, I'm okay with that because if anything. What's brought me... I love these DC characters more than anything. But also, Zach made them matter even more to me. And I was already a diehard DC fan. If he's done with the DCEU, fine. I'm still going to go out and support his movies no matter what. Even if they bomb at the box office, I don't care. If I keep getting these movies from him, I'll be happy as a Zack Snyder fan.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree.
I feel like this whole thing, the only positive that he could get out from is the fact that maybe people who just loved DC and didn't know of his work or weren't fans of his work have now become in awe and would always support him. So, I mean, I suppose that's a positive. And the only positive that I get out of this whole experience, because I was so excited for Justice League, I was on a next level excitement, high buzz thing that night.
I think we all were.
Is the fact that when Aquaman comes out, I'm not even going to go to a midnight viewing. I'm just going to go on the day of release and just watch it and come in with a level head and expect nothing. Because if you expect greatness, then, you're shut on.
Yeah.
Like they did with us. So, but again, I do like James Wan's movies, The Conjuring and all of his other movies. He's really, really good. So... I'm coming in with some expectation, but not much. But I love Aquaman, and I really hope they do well by him.
Yep.
Yep. I mean, we are getting a lot of DC TV shows, and by a lot, I mean
a lot.
What to load? I can't even keep up with them anymore.
Neither can I.
I mean, Black Lightning is
I'm a writer.
Black Lightning is something that I have been loving lately.
Oh God, I know. It's funny because I know we're getting a little off track, but. Okay, so as you guys know, I'm writing for Comic Book Debate now, and I'm their DC TV writer, and first of all, I'm super behind on Flash, Supergirl, Arrow, Legends. I'm barely watching any of those shows. The only show I actually care about right now is Black Lightning, because that show is freaking fantastic. If you guys aren't watching Black Lightning, support it, because it's probably going to be the best DC CW show ever, maybe outside of Smallville, because I'm always going to be partial to Smallville. But it's one of the most important shows to come out in a long time. Please watch it. That's all I got to say.
Guys, regarding the Snyder Cut, for me, this whole thing became not about fighting for the release of his Justice League cut, but more like a fight against what Warner Brothers did in general, that you can't treat your consumers that way. And this whole release, the Snyder Cut, is more like a cry for respect to consumers, that no, you don't do this to the vision of your director. You don't lie to your consumers, most of all, because if you watch all Justice League trailers, even today, you will still find that the movie that they promoted is absolutely not what they released in theaters. Absolutely not.
Very much, and it's a lot about respect to the directors too. Yeah, see, thank you, Danielle. It just felt like they really came in and kicked him when he was down. It wasn't a cool thing to do at all. Sorry, go on, Danielle.
I mean, doesn't a lot of studios do that to directors' visions, don't they? Or is it just Zack Snyder's visions always?
Well, in the case of superhero movies, in the case of these franchise films, it's a unique situation, because I don't think the directors have the bargaining power that they otherwise would have, because it's their vision, but it's not their copyright, it's not their intellectual property, and without that intellectual property leverage, they really have very little say. And I mean, historically, have had very little say. Like these films have been made by test audiences and made by committee for years and years, for decades, and that's why they've always been garbage. And like, this has been like, this is what's crazy, is that I've been a superhero film fan since the 90s Batman movies, and I've been privy to the film drama, and I've been privy to everything behind the scenes and all that stuff, and we lost this conversation when the MCU began, but like, the MCU was unprecedented in that the movies were kind of decent. And I think that, I mean, like, I know it's very rude to say, but like, it really is like revolutionary to make a good comic book movie. And half of the reason that we started making good comic book movies was we started giving directors a little leeway. The MCU doesn't give their directors any space, but they give them more space than they used to have. They stopped kicking them off projects halfway through rewriting the entire script. And you know that the Superman scripts that have been shopped around have been written by no less than 6 screenwriters. Historically, most of them, like Kevin Smith talks about this a lot when he's doing interviews. He's always talking about being asked to do complete rewrites of superhero film scripts, and then just being mysteriously kicked off the project and have his script go to someone else for a rewrite. But that's the kind of disrespect that these projects face, and it's the franchise problem. It's an intellectual, creative property problem. It's a copyright problem that we actually need to figure out on a legal level. Why people are allowed to own copyrights that are hundreds of years old. And why that's okay.
Was that happening with X-Men too? Because X-Men, I don't know, X-Men doesn't feel like it was made by a committee or something.
I think Bryan Singer had a lot of control. But I'm not sure.
I didn't watch X-Men after the first movie, so I freely admit that. I got busy.
That's the only MCU. That's the only Marvel movies that I actually somewhat enjoy, because
now
it's
I'm
not
like,
MCU.
gosh, I gotta catch up on these, but
guys,
well, if anything now, honestly, I know we're getting a little off topic, but with the whole X-Men thing, now I'm a little soured by that, especially because of all the accusations against Bryan Singer and what he's been doing for decades. I don't know if I even want to go back to those movies, because even though, like, he helped bring the superhero genre to where it is today with the original X-Men movie, but at what cost? You know, so that's...
Yeah. I was confused when I had no idea that Bryan Singer did those things until this year. So in 2016 when I saw X-Men Apocalypse, I remember how excited everybody was that he was back in the in doing X-Men movies, which, I mean, I didn't get, because I've been a fan of X-Men since I saw the first movie. I mean, even the bad X-Men movies, I like them. So, like, I didn't feel like the franchise needed saving, but everybody, apparently, a lot of people felt that way. I don't know why. So when he came back to do Apocalypse, everybody was, like, rejoicing, like, hallelujah, he's returned. And I'm like, I didn't think this franchise needed any help, but okay. And now, finding out about what he did, I'm just like, why were they rejoicing if these accusations had already been, like, out there? Like, you know? Like, people act... Like, I don't know. Like, nobody was like, oh, he's back, but maybe he shouldn't be, you know? Especially because I don't know.
Well, honestly, because I feel like there wasn't as much pressure back. Like, people were easy to dismiss the victims and being like, oh, they're just trying to get money out of this famous person, so we're not gonna take their story seriously. But now, everything since Harvey Weinstein, like no one, like anyone who's done anything of that level, they're done, like, instantly. So now, like, there's that pressure, like, if there's any sort of, like skeletons in the closet with these men in Hollywood, you can tell they're all terrified, because now the next person who steps up and says something, they're done instantly. Like, look how quickly Netflix got rid of Kevin Spacey, Danny Masterson, all those people, and it sucks it's taken so long for these men to finally have to face justice. But it's I'm glad that it is happening. So steps are being taken to make sure that these men no longer have a place in Hollywood. So
I hope it continues. I worry that it's a short-lived thing, and the next thing we know, people will be back to their usual problems.
I mean, and we have to be honest about the fact that
I worry about
before Weinstein and before Me Too, like, people knew about this stuff. They just didn't care. Like, they just straight up didn't care.
Like change it, you know.
They just felt like, you know, I mean, like, we're having that conversation now, and I think it's a really good conversation to have in the wake of sort of Uma Thurman's horror stories about the Kill Bill set and everything. Mm-hmm. What is acceptable in terms of, like, what will we do for art, and mm-hmm. what are we willing to look the other way about, and I think that it's really good that we're having a conversation where we start to draw really hard lines, where we say, like, people shouldn't be hurt for this, people shouldn't have their lives be put in danger for, you know, the sake of the latest blockbuster. Mm-hmm. Even this, like, you know, if we're dealing with even with, like, auteurs and stuff, like, we shouldn't be harming the creatives in the situation. And I think that connects directly back to Snyder in the way that, like, we all really want a Snyder cut of the Justice League, but it's like, it's absolutely secondary to his well-being. Absolutely secondary. I think that sometimes it can be really important to a person's well-being to finish a project like that, and sometimes I do wonder if that is something that, like, would be cathartic. But if it's not what he needs, like, you know, there's absolutely no reason to make him revisit that, to make him crack that open again and try and do it.
And I 100% agree. Like, I don't want him to have to revisit something, especially if it's just brings up nothing but bad memories for him, or bad negative feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So again,
in the end, I would just take the first cut he had that was primitive and not totally finished yet, you know, but was his first cut. I'd just take that. I don't even need him to go back and work on it. But
literally, what I saw in the theater was so garbage that they could release a half-finished Snyder cut. That's just like no VFX, no transitions. Not really even a connecting fiber, and I would be like, this is beautiful. Oh my god, I'm finally seeing Justice League.
Yep. But it's nice to hear you guys say that, though, because just this morning I was thinking I need to send a message to that Fiona chick that's on Vero. Like, she's the one that Zach told her he hadn't actually seen the film since he stepped away from it, you know, and then he said, you know how much I love these characters, I'm sorry I couldn't stay and finish it for you and all the other fans. And her reply was so important to me because she didn't say, yeah, wish I could see the movie or anything like that. It was simply, sir, what we have is you, and that means more than anything. And he sent back like 3 hearts. And it was like, thank you so much for acknowledging this man's importance to us as more than just somebody to give us movies. You know what I mean? In the end.
Was that post on Vero?
You know, yeah, you know, and in the end, like, that's what he needs to hear right now, is that we're behind you and we support you no matter what, and whatever you need, you know, that's cool. If you need time away, if you need to move on to new projects, do that. That's cool. You know, it's just a matter of, I don't know, I just really want him to know how much he's respected and how much his fans are really here for him. Because there are some that still continually come on and like, wish I could see your version, man. And it's like, that's great and all, but would you please not just go ahead and pound him with that left and right? You know, can you give the man a little bit of peace and just let him make his own decisions? It's okay. It's okay. So we do have to be a little bit respectful.
Yeah.
So anyway, I really appreciated that. And I was like, man, I need to send her a message. Thank you for that response to him. That's exactly what he needed to hear. And I'm so glad you said it. So, but anyway, moving on.
Yeah, and that's what, like, it just is for me. Like, again, I want that, but whenever, like, I go on Vero and, like, I see like 30 people being like, hashtag release the Snyder Cut, hashtag release the Snyder Cut. It's like, give the guy a break. He just posted a picture of himself having coffee. Like, just like
yeah, I can't with that.
Yeah, no, that's, you know, in the end, I am totally good with anybody who wants to pelt Warner Brothers with that hashtag and give them some grief and be like, hey, we're still unhappy about this, and let them know. I'm good with that. But don't harass the man himself. Don't go bug Zach about it. That's really not what he needs to be hearing right now. I do think that they think
it's supportive. I just don't think that it comes across as supportive as
I wouldn't view it as
it's meant.
It comes off as selfish, honestly.
No, yeah.
And I don't think they mean that.
Me out to be receiving all those.
Yeah. All right, so
yeah.
Yeah. So I think with that being said, we could probably go ahead and read our first question here. Let me see if I can pull it up here. Okay, so I have a number of questions from Guardian of the Galaxy, and we'll go ahead and flip-flop between the various questions, just so it's not just like answering one person's bunch of questions to make it a little fair. So the first question she has, then this is from Guardian of the Galaxy with 2 Y's at the end on Tumblr, and she says, I have questions for your podcast. 1, why do you think Nolan's dark/serious tone of the Dark Knight series is more accepted than Zack's?
I think it's because people just basically worship Christopher Nolan in a way that is really weird. I mean, I love him and I'd watch all his movies. I still haven't watched Dunkirk. That's just purely because I'm not a huge war fan movie. They don't really appeal to me. But whereas Zack doesn't get that rep because of his, I don't know, I feel like his previous movies as well, like Sucker Punch, people hated that. I didn't even realize. I just went to the cinema and enjoyed it, and people have been easily, making assumptions ever since his first few movies. Some of which were great, but I don't know. Christopher Nolan has that very elitist style. I don't know how to word it, but because it's Christopher Nolan. That is literally it.
I think I get what you're trying to say.
No, but it literally is. And I mean, Zack has tried to make his movies as realistic as he possibly could. But then again, is the Dark Knight trilogy actually a superhero movie? It's more like...
I would call it like a crime drama, if anything.
Yeah, because...
That's good description.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it not being like, with it being like a crime drama, because I mean, sometimes like people mix up the genres and people say that it's refreshing, so
Yeah, no, I think in the end, like, Christopher Nolan, he makes good movies, but I do notice, and I'm not trying to diss on him at all or anything, I like his movies, but, like, he tends to be a little bit more mainstream, which is hilarious, but he does, he comes a little bit closer to the midline of mainstream than Zack does. Zack has a very definitive style. Zack, like Jonathan or Christopher, is good at creating these big, beautiful scenes and stuff like that. But Zack takes it like 4 steps further. He's extremely visual, and he's got so many layers. And Chris doesn't tend to do that as much. And I think, unfortunately, because we're in the era where people just want to sit down and have a movie play at them, get spoon-fed some stuff and then go home and call it an enjoyable time. They don't really want to work and kind of dig through the layers and analyze it and stuff like that. I'm a geek for that stuff. But since he doesn't do that as much, he doesn't put people off as easily. And because I agree, like even now, only after talking to you guys and all the comic book geeks and stuff on Tumblr and stuff, I go, oh, that's really not the Batman from the comics. Okay, good to know. I don't read comics, so I didn't really know that. I just figured that was Batman. He's on screen, right? And so the mainstream people can just take that and go, yeah, no problem. But then Zack comes in and he's got a little bit more style, a lot more of a dense kind of thing, and he's very visual. I love it. But unfortunately, it falls farther out of the mainstream norm, and less people are going to like it, which is sad to me because I wish more people would, I wish I was in a society where it was like, this is the best thing ever. But sadly, we don't seem to live in that kind of society. And so when Henry, ages ago, during Justice League, they kept asking him about, the previous films and this, and that, and the other, he very carefully answered, and I respect his answer, and that he said, Zack's films are niche, which what he's trying to say is that they appeal to a smaller spectrum because they're so unique. Zack's style is not anybody else's style. And Christopher does good work, but he falls closer to the work of many others that's pretty basic and palatable for the movie-going public. And honestly,
I agree.
I think that's all it is.
I think it's very literary in its approach.
Yes.
Yes. And Nolan's films are very sleek, and people love sleek. They're into sleek. But when they start being asked to unpack things and meet a storyteller halfway in terms of effort, they get really, really frustrated really fast. And I think the other thing that I think is a big difference is that Zach's films are confrontational. And I think that that's a huge thing. And I think that people, whether they understand what they're being attacked about or not, they pick it up and they get very mad, and they don't know why, usually, why they're mad. They just have this weird feeling. I definitely, like, Batman versus Superman really upset me. And I had to unpack that feeling. But if you don't unpack that feeling, you can just sit with those angry feelings and just be like, this is a bad thing the director did. Instead of thinking, you know, what is this trying to tell me? What is a negative feeling I'm getting off this film trying to tell me? And I think that explains a lot of the reaction that happened in terms of Sucker Punch, because we're all misogynists. And we all sat down in front of Sucker Punch and felt kind of attacked, which makes sense because we all have, you know, we all have biases against women, and we all have an instinct toward rape culture, and we all have this stuff that Zach was kind of attacking. And I don't think that Sucker Punch was a terribly successful film in what it was trying to do, but I do think that the emotional language carried through, and people were really pissed for the right reasons, for the reasons he wanted us to be angry. And he gets what he wants out of an audience. I think that's what's amazing. It's just that, like, what the backlash of that is significant, and always affects him on a personal level. And I think that it affects him on a personal level because he's like a socially anxious, kind of awkward dude who doesn't interview terribly well. Whereas if you look at Nolan's side of things, Nolan is very he's very socially confident. He's very terse. He doesn't really usually he doesn't grant interviews, which is a big thing. I think that his lack of speaking to the press is a huge part of his appeal, honestly, because no one can attack him personally. Whereas with Zach, you know, is just a really genuine guy, and that's a mistake. I mean, like, it's beautiful, but in the public eye, that's a mistake, and I think that that's why he gets so much personal bile. But on a movie level, I think the difference between Snyder and Nolan is about complexity, and it's about him attacking his audience with ideas.
I agree with that. Don't you think after The Dark Knight Rises, Iron Man started to come out, and so did the Marvel properties, and even Christopher Nolan started to get a bit of, you know, slack, I think the word is, a bit of, you know, backlash.
Dark Knight Rises was the least favorite of that trilogy, true, but it still did extremely well, and came out pretty well, you know. So, sorry.
No, what I mean was that people started to, you know, not like Christopher Nolan, and he had to distance himself from the DC universe as well. And whenever a new movie was announced for DC, they'd always say, "Oh no, it's not Christopher Nolan. I hope it's not Christopher Nolan. I'm sick and tired of Christopher Nolan. Why can't DC be fun and light like Marvel and do an Iron Man?" I think at the end, people did get lethargic.
So what you're saying is that the Marvel influence did start to take effect, and Zach
even
just
with
has
Nolan.
the really horrible timing of coming in after that.
Yep.
Okay. I see your point, and I will not deny that.
I think it happened with Christopher Nolan as well.
Yeah,
I
because
don't
you're
know
right.
what,
Yeah,
why.
like, you know, why are you attacking class and all this kind of stuff in your movies when you just could make it fun, you know? So, okay, I see your point. I do think timing could very well be an issue, too.
I saw this kind of like, I don't know if it had anything to do with DC and Marvel, but I noticed people were kind of like starting to complain about Nolan. Like, I don't know, like they're complaining like he's he's trying to be smart or something like that. Personally, for me, I think he does like he does demand from an audience as a storyteller, at least with Inception and with Interstellar. Like, he is asking something from the audience. Like, I have to put something into those movies. At least, like, second time that I watched Inception, like, having watched it before, like, I had to, like, kind of make connections that I hadn't before. And so, I think he does kind of, like, at his best anyways, he is like Zach, where you have to put something in to get something out. So,
yeah, to put nuance on that, it's kind of like the difference for me is like someone bringing me a puzzle on a tray and someone hiding a puzzle somewhere in a room. Like, I have to go find the puzzle with Snyder. I have to like it's a lot of engagement. I have to go deep into the film and really like work for it, and I have to go find the puzzle, and then once I find the puzzle, I still have to put the puzzle together. Whereas I feel like Nolan does bring you a puzzle. And I would say, like, I wouldn't say that his films are simplistic. I do think they're sleek, but I think, definitely they require some engagement. I just think he serves the puzzle up to you, which is, like, a lot of people prefer their engagement that way. And I think that's absolutely valid. I was so excited to be extra challenged. I was so I'm always so excited to have the bar raised. I know people trying to be smart. I'm like, God, what a terrible thing to try to be. Oh, God forbid we all be smart.
See, the wild thing, like, I'm not totally sure about Batman v Superman because that is a little bit more dense, and I still love it. But, like, for Man of Steel, I just sat down and watched it. And even after the first time, I wasn't delving into any other layers or analyzing or anything. It was just like, holy crap, what an awesome movie. I freaking love this movie. Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed. And then, only after that, then it's like after viewing it, 3 more times in the theater and for the first time in my life being like, how do you work this torrent thing? How do you find, like, copies of this, before the video, like, getting the DVD, watch it because I love it so much, and then going, wait a minute. There's layers in here. Holy crap, I'm so unused to that. There's layers in here. Oh, I can pick this apart. I can do this. Holy crap, it holds up under scrutiny. And then you get really, really excited. But just on its surface even, Man of Steel was an awesome film. And just a lovely story about a superhero all to start with. And so I do think, unfortunately, we talked about it before, some of the fact that there is a great history and expectation for this character more than Batman. He's not allowed to evolve and change the way Batman has been given more leeway to do over his time, his 75 years as a comic book hero. That definitely does play in also, because Man of Steel was divisive from the moment it came out. There were severe detractors and severe supporters. And then Batman v Superman came out, and it just got even worse. And so there is some of that, too. Batman has been allowed to change and evolve and do different things. And I do agree, before Marvel came up, I'm sure people thought it was so refreshing. That was the whole deal. It was so refreshing to have a realistic and down-to-earth Batman thing like Nolan did. And then Marvel started up and it started to be funny and good times, and then people's tastes started to change what they wanted. And then you bring in the whole Batman, mythos and everybody's expectations for it and slap that down. And I kind of think, like, Zach was just never going to get 90% approval no matter what he did. You would never actually get everybody on board,
This is exactly what I was thinking about right now, is that one of the popular arguments against Man of Steel was that why Nolan's Batman trilogy was accepted is that people allow different things to be done with Batman. But when it comes to Superman, they don't want a grounded version of the world where the Superman has to rise.
Yeah.
they were complaining about that he's not escaping fantasy from the real world. Like, now he is also in the real world, and he has to deal with real stuff like normal people do. And people didn't like that, because for them, Superman should be like Christopher Reeve's version, who can spin the world around and make the entire movie pointless, because he can literally rewrite entire thing and save everyone and everything without any consequences happening.
Yep.
Yeah, it's very much about nostalgia, I think. But I too, I think that it's a good point to point out timing, because the Man of Steel was so disadvantaged by the just coming out, and people's attitude toward it was like how dare you, like the audacity of you guys trying to build a cinematic universe, even though the pressure on DC was to build, like, people, like, all the fans were like, when does the DC cinematic universe come out? And then once it started coming out, they were like, well, it'll never be as good as Marvel. And it's like, that attitude has dogged us for the entire DCEU, and it's absolutely a huge part of the way that the media covers it, because it's a convenient narrative. And I think, too, that everyone takes for granted, because DC is kind of a cinematic underdog right now, is that DC has kicked Marvel's ass for decades. So when the MCU happened, it felt like a real underdog story. It felt like, finally Marvel's doing something really cool, and like they've had a really rough road getting here. Like, they've lost copyrights to their properties, and they had all sorts of financial issues, and we all know that history. And then leading up to this, we got to this point where it was like, wow, like, we really wanted Marvel to win because they felt like such an underdog. And I think that nobody wanted to disrupt that narrative. Nobody wanted to say, hey, what if DC could have a piece of this too, and it wouldn't be a big deal. It was like, no, Marvel has finally beat DC, that's the way we want this story to end. And I think that continues to be the attitude, and that continues, like, it's nonsense, because Marvel Disney is definitely a giant corporate monster, and in no way the scared little franchise, or the little tiny guy. Like they're the big guys in the neighborhood, and they're the guys to beat. And that narrative has to change in order for, if the DCEU is going to go anywhere, that narrative has to change, because Warner Brothers clearly can't take the freaking heat.
Nope, they can't stick to their guns.
And also, like, one thing I think is fair to bring up too is that, like, Marvel never had the uphill battle of, like, other than the Hulk and Spider-Man, there haven't been any other real live-action interpretations of these characters that people, like, are so nostalgic about. Like, there haven't been, like, decades of, like, the Christopher Reeve films, the Tim Burton Batman, the Nolan Batman, all that stuff. Like, they basically had, like, a clean slate, like, minus the Hulk, because the Hulk had a few movies and Spider-Man had a few movies, but for everyone else, like, they had some really bad TV movies, but that was about it. So, like, a lot of people went in basically not knowing who any of these people were. So with with DC, they're like, oh, well, this isn't Christian Bale's Batman, so it sucks. This isn't Christopher Reeve's Superman, so it sucks. This isn't Linda Carter all fun, so Wonder Woman is dumb. Like, granted, that's been, like hardly anyone has actually said that about Wonder Woman, but you know what I mean? Like there's been a constant uphill battle in that aspect, too.
They did say that about her in Batman v Superman before she got her movie. A lot of people did hate on Wonder Woman. I mean, I've never really been a fan of Wonder Woman before the movies, just out of comics. I don't know why. I'm waiting for something to click with her character. But
she just needs a consistently good writer. That's the thing.
She has had shit being thrown at her because of how she looked.
Yeah, I would say a lot of it was, oh, she's too skinny. She can't possibly, you know.
Oh, her boobs are too small and blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, guys. I did enjoy the movie and I do like Wonder Woman, but she's like...
She took a lot of heat before her actual film came out. You're right.
Hot Girl or Supergirl, more so, but Catwoman. I'm a Catwoman fan. I know Lily loves comics. She's a Catwoman fan, isn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
She is.
Yeah. But she's an anti-hero. Anyway, but yeah, I do agree. It's the fact that we've had how many years now? Around about an average of 80 years, give or take.
Yeah. I mean, it was like 75th when Man of Steel came out for Superman. Batman's not too far behind.
It's gonna be 80 years since Superman came out this year.
Yeah. See, I mean, I've got so much background, and I totally agree. I had vaguely heard about Captain America. I knew nothing about him before his film came out. Thor, I only knew about because I had watched Adventures in Babysitting when I was a kid, and that little girl liked Thor and wore a helmet with the wings on it and had a sledgehammer, or had a big, big hammer. You know, that is it. I did not know these Marvel characters before we came in. Iron Man, no clue. Didn't really care either. And so they had a beautiful blank slate to start with, a blank canvas, and that is always an advantage. Always.
Like my mother, I don't know whether I've said this before, I probably have, and I'm repeating myself, but my family, who come from a completely different place in the world, if you ever said superhero, is the only Marvel superhero that you can actually bring up was Spider-Man. Other than that,
Spider-Man.
Batman.
And the Hulk, I vaguely remember the TV show The Hulk as a kid, and that was good stuff. So, simply because I had a temper and I identified with him, I was like, yes, I do understand when you get angry, you know? You get big and mean. I feel you, dude. So, but, you know, other than that, yeah.
Well, that's why people always think Spider-Man is a DC character, because people have actually heard of it. Yeah, that was rude and I don't care.
Oh my gosh.
See, this is why I love having you on, Danielle.
Guys, you know what's weird thing that I think I noticed? People talk about the MCU like it's fun and it's just fun and it needs to be fun. But when I saw Iron Man, what impressed me wasn't that it was fun. Like, Iron Man is fun, right? But it's emotional. Like, there are scenes in there where you are literally afraid for the characters' lives. You're, like, clutching the edge of your seat. Like, there's real thrills. There's real danger. There's real heart. Like, oh my gosh, that movie is so emotional. Okay? And the next movie after that, Incredible Hulk, also very emotional. And it's like, yeah, early on, they were fun. Like, Iron Man is fun. Like, that's part of Tony's personality. The guy likes to have a good time. He likes to be witty. But there was always that emotional heart there, that real core. And so back then, to me, it was kind of similar to X-Men, where, yeah, there's fun stuff going on. Yeah, there's jokes. But when something serious is happening. And when people are getting emotional, they're getting emotional. And so I find it crazy that people act like the MCU has always been this way. But they kind of left their roots, to be honest. Like, they were in a sweet spot, and they left it behind. And it's like they've forgotten where they even were before.
I will always defend Phase 1. Phase 1 was beautiful, and the way that they treated masculinity in Phase 1 is the reason that I was into comic books at the time at all. Like, I hadn't ever even picked up a comic before, I don't know, before Iron Man, I think. And then I just started getting into it because of the way that they handled masculinity. And it turned out to be a huge mistake, because the comics absolutely don't support any of that in the text. But, it was revolutionary, and it was gorgeous, and it did a lot of really cool things, and then they just stopped progressing, and we've turned up the dial on the hilarity over and over and over again, to the point where it's deafening. I mean, Ragnarok was a huge, was tumultuous for me, because it's like, this is exactly everything that I think that is wrong about the volume at which we're screaming fun into the loudspeakers. Like,
if you want to, like, rant about Ragnarok later with me, like, absolutely, because I just saw it last week, and it would be nice to unpack.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay,
absolutely.
okay, and also, I finally saw Homecoming like a week or two ago, and oh my god, what a disappointment! Like,
I really liked Homecoming.
Honestly,
I'm a Spider-Man fan though, so I'll like anything.
And that's the
Peter's
thing.
in
Like,
it.
I tried to go in with an open mind. Like, I thought the kid was good in Civil War, or Tom Holland, or whatever. But something about like this movie, it didn't feel like a Spider-Man movie to me. Like, I feel like the stakes weren't there. Like, I know they were trying to distance themselves from past Spider-Man movies. Like, they didn't mention Uncle Ben. Like, they barely mentioned his origin story. And, like, almost none of the characters were from previous movies. But for me, it just felt like... I don't know. It just felt like more like a Saturday morning cartoon, but not in a good way.
Yeah.
Like, it felt like it was kept trying to beat you over the head with these jokes. And, like, Michael Keaton and Zendaya were the only things I really found enjoyable in that movie, to be honest. And it sucks because I'm at a point where, other than Black Panther and even kind of Civil War or Infinity War, like, I just don't look forward to Marvel movies really anymore. Like, if they're good, I'll watch them. Like everyone and their mother kept trying to tell me, watch Spider-Man. I watched it, disappointed. Everyone kept telling me, watch Thor. More than likely, I'll probably be disappointed. Like,
yeah.
Wait, I watched Thor the other day, and it's like the first Marvel movie that I sat down and just gave in to the pressures of siblings, and I kind of slept after the point where, do you know when Thor was in that seat and that girl took him to the Jurassic World, Jeff Goldblum, whatever he's called.
Yeah, Jeff Goldblum.
When he was there, and then I think, who's the Green Goblin guy? Not Goblin.
What?
I'm listening to the summary and being like, did I see this movie? I'm not sure.
What's he called? The guy that everyone loves as a villain.
Oh, Loki.
Loki.
I'm gonna call him that forevermore. That's awesome.
Sorry guys, I really don't pay attention. I know who the characters are, but like I was sat there and I was just trying to make sense of what happened. And Thor, no, Thor's the main guy. Wait, yeah. I'm gonna listen to a commentary. I'm sorry, my description's horrible. I just really don't care for Marvel. But Loki was sat in the party, and Thor was was saying that he knew him, and then Loki was pretending that he didn't, just to save his own arse. And the girl that was wearing white that saved Thor from the flesh eaters or whatever they're called, near the garbage. That is as far as I remember, and then I slept. I don't even know what else happened. And then my sister was like,
my husband went to see it with my daughter, came home and looked at me and said, "You won't like it." And I said, "Noted." So, he said, "It's everything you complain about." And I said, "Okie dokie then, I won't worry about it." And I still haven't seen it. So
yeah. So to answer your question, this is why Nolan movies are praised better than Snyder movies.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Well, the LCU is a big part of it. It's just that we try not to talk very much about them because it's not nice.
I will also say though, okay, I have not officially seen Sucker Punch yet. I haven't felt rich enough to buy the DVD.
Same here.
So I'm going out on a limb like this, but I've read a couple essays and stuff, and I don't think I'm too off base trying to say this because one guy mentioned this, but Nolan still tries to kind of, how do I put it? I don't want to call it spoon feeding, but he still gives his audience enough to go on. And you're right, Danielle, he requires less investment. With Zach, you really do have to hunt for some of the pieces or the puzzle itself to put them together instead of just putting it in front of you. And like Inception, he very much gave the audience the information. They had to have the exposition. They had to understand what was going on here. They had to know, and Sucker Punch didn't do that so much. It didn't really explain what was happening. It didn't really explain what they were doing. They were just doing it. I still am of the opinion I'm going to watch it and probably love it because I just don't know what it is about Zach's films. They get me every time. But the guy mentioned that like in the essay I read, that Inception was very spoon-fed and Sucker Punch was not. And you're right. The minute people are asked to engage that hard, they don't want to. And so I think in the end, that's what it comes down to. Nolan, as far as I'm concerned, made the most, how do I put it, lack of midline way. He deviated from the midline more in Dunkirk simply because he provided 3 stories and they were all taking place in different time. Like, he made that clear at the beginning, but even halfway through, I'm like, what the frick? This guy again? Does he have a twin? Why am I so... And then it was like, oh, wait, no, okay, this is the night before his sub got sank. Okay, yeah. Like, that even took me a few minutes to put together, and my husband was like, what in the absolute heck is going on in here? Like, they keep jumping back and forth between stories, and I can't keep up. He hates that. And so, like, that is, for me, one of the most controversial things that Nolan's ever done, is to actually go, you know what? I'm not going to give this to you piece by piece. I'm going to break it up and give it to you a little bit chronologically. And then it all ties together at the end. It's a beautiful artistic choice, and yet that is the most artistic choice I've seen him make in a while. Like, to
when
actually
did we get
break
so
up those
beholden
stories.
to chronology? It makes me cry.
Yeah, well, and people freak out, So I was curious because I was like, wow, that is not a normal approach, and I'm sure people complain. So I go and look up the Dunkirk reviews, and everybody and their dog. Okay, like lots of people were like, masterpiece, wonderful, and 50% of the reviews, what a mess, what a terrible thing. What is he doing? Why can't he just tell the story, chronologically so we can understand it? So in the end, yeah. He comes closer to midline. He manages to make it closer than Zach does, but he still is a little bit out to the side, which is why I think he really respects Zach's work and felt he was the right man for the job, and I respect him for that. So
I think that the difference in their style in terms of how much they the kind of puzzles that they present, or how they present the puzzle, I don't think that that's bad.
No, it's not.
I don't think that it reflects that badly on Chris. Or makes Zach better than him or whatever. They just do things differently.
Exactly.
And that's
it's just
fine.
Unfortunate that in the society we're in, one tends to be more easily accepted, and the other does not. But you're right. It doesn't make either one better than the other. It doesn't make them bad or good. It just means they have a little bit different styles of the way they do things. But unfortunately, the flavor of the world we live in, they go for one more than the other.
I think a big part of it, too, is that when you go see a Christopher Nolan movie, he has a reputation, so you go in knowing that you're going to be asked to do a puzzle, but people don't expect Zach to do that. They're like,
that's
Zach's a stupid dude, bro, and he's not intelligent in any way, shape, or form, so we don't expect anything from him. You go into a Christopher Nolan movie and think, I'm going to have to think about this. People go into a Zack Snyder movie and they think, I'm not going to have to think because it's just
okay, action and lots of violent
That's what
stuff.
I think.
Okay. Which is hilarious because they're
public
not
persona
paying attention.
Thing. Yeah. That's why I think it's a public persona thing, because I'll be honest, Zach scared the ever-loving shit out of me when he first gave an interview before Man of Steel. I listened to him and I was like, no, not this guy.
What are you
not
doing?
This guy. Please. Anyone but this guy. Can you find someone else really fast? This is terrible. What's happening? I was in a panic because not only does he not articulate his ideas terribly well on the fly, I think that after a while he can come up with something that kind of explains what he's doing, but he kind of just trusts people to figure out what he means, and he just is Mr. Put his foot in his mouth. He said a lot of things that have sent me on 3-week panic attacks.
So in other words, he's extremely visually gifted, but he ain't so great with words.
Exactly. Yes, and I just think he's a very difficult interview to listen to sometimes, especially if you don't have a lot of faith, and you're just sort of like, this guy is going to take ownership of my children. What's he going to do with them? And then he has this a surfer dude sort of aesthetic, and he uses the word man a lot. His whole aesthetic is very confusing, I think, to people, and I think that that's a huge part of why no one actually believes that there's anything more to his films, because they're like, no, that's what a stupid person looks like. A stupid person can't make a film that has, references to Joseph Campbell in it. It's not possible. So you guys must be reading too much into it. And it's like, no, like not all geniuses are eloquent. Not all geniuses sound like geniuses. Like what we expect geniuses to sound like,
Yeah, that's the problem.
He's non-traditional, and Nolan is very smart in that he doesn't speak very much. And when he does, it seems like it's much more scripted. He's thought about it for a while. Whereas Zach is just an affable sort of regular dude, which is just so weird to me. Watching his films and being like, wow, like how are you normal? Like, if I were you, I'd be like the most pretentious dickhead in the entire world. I'd be like, look what I did.
But then I feel like if he was pretentious, maybe people would like him a bit more. But then
it's possible.
We have our expectations, and you're right.
You know
we expect them to look a certain way, be a certain way, talk a certain way, and if they'll talk a good game, we'll go for it. Humans are terrible for following clever, smooth-tongued people, and whether or not they're preaching good things. So.
And
all I can think about is that one guy now. He just have a terrible track record of following, leaders down to terrible atrocities. Okay, I'm done now. But
if Zach did a movie and didn't put his name on the movie and put someone else's name, and that was like an agreement between them, people would love that movie more. And then, I feel like he should do that. Let's have Zach do that. He should direct a movie and not tell anyone that it's him. Wait until the reviews and everything have happened, and then hit us all with the, hey guys, it was me, I'm back again.
I think it would be interesting.
And then I feel like the reaction would be completely different, and then people will see the bias. I don't think people see it at the moment.
I don't think they see it, but sadly, even if he tried that, I think some people would go, okay, maybe I was giving this guy an unfair shake just because of, what I associate with his name. But other people would be like, how dare you trick us? What a piece of crap you are. Oh, that's right. I remember. This movie's crap. I knew it was crap. I totally knew it was crap. Delete, delete, delete prior posts that said it was good. It's humans are a funky, stupid race sometimes, and you would only win over so many with that. But I agree that it's unfortunate as an artist in any medium that over time you become known, and as you become known, people have a certain expectation or idea that they have of you, and it's very hard to shake that. And so you wonder sometimes what kind of reaction you'd get if you were a newcomer coming out and putting this stuff out there where you were unknown. And I think that's why so many authors over time have written under different pseudonyms and stuff like that, and different people have done different things like that, because they really do want to know what kind of reaction would I get if people didn't know this was me doing it. If I was just some unknown dude, would they react the same, or would I get something entirely different?
I mean, he's hated either way, so even if you do hate the movie again, at least the first initial site was positive, and then you can just screenshot it and have receipts for the rest of their life anytime they critique another movie and say it's dog shit, when it's really not. I mean, he's damned if he does, he's damned if he doesn't.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Exactly.
It's frustrating to watch.
Next question!
Alright, so this is one, again, kind of jumping out of order here, but this is from Diana Princess on Tumblr, and she asks 2 questions, but I'm going to ask the second one because I think it's a really interesting conversation to have. Do you think there were any interesting parallels between the reception to The Last Jedi and the reception to BvS?
Oh crap, I haven't seen that movie, guys.
Okay, we will not.
Okay, so we will no spoilers, but and I know Artem and I have very differing opinions on The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
To say the least.
This is good. This is good. I want to hear this conversation though.
For me, I'll admit it's not my favorite Star Wars movie, but I think it has some of the most layers that we've seen in a Star Wars film. I know there are some things in there that, Artem, you might have some fair points to bring up when you talk about it. But for myself, just what they were able to do with Luke Skywalker in this story, to me, very much so reminds me of how Zack portrayed Superman as this, kind of lonely and lost person who kind of feels like he's failed. And in looking at that, I think people looked at Luke Skywalker, I think very much of the way they looked at, and I'm not saying I'm not trying to speak for you, RT. I'm saying from what I can see from how fans have reacted. They're kind of treating Luke in a way that they've treated Superman in that way, like, oh, he's not the way I remember in this film from the 80s, so therefore what they're doing now, they're making him emo and blah blah blah, and why can't they just do it like I remember when I was a kid? So this movie, I felt like, was a very like anti-Force Awakens, because the Force Awakens was very much so like Episode 4: A New Hope. So and there's a fair amount of criticism in that, like, hey, like this is just a rehash. So by having The Last Jedi be so completely different from anything else that Star Wars has had, I think people necessarily weren't expecting it, and also I think a lot of people were expecting their fan theories to be proven right. And when they weren't, and when things happened in a way that they weren't expecting, they reacted harshly to it, fairly or unfairly. So just from my perspective, I think very much so, like, the reception has been very... I definitely see the comparison between BvS and The Last Jedi, and both that, to me, they're both very layered films and deconstruct these characters who have been held up to a standard because of nostalgia, but when they're broken down, that's when people criticize and they're like, oh, this isn't my Superman, this isn't my Luke Skywalker. So those are just some of my thoughts. But if Artin, you want to go ahead and share your thoughts.
Yeah, I agree with this comparison, and the opinions are really drastic regarding The Last Jedi. And my personal complaints go from the fact that, to me, The Last Jedi almost didn't care about what J.J. Abrams established in The Force Awakens. Like, it let down me regarding the villain, Snoke. I'm not going to spoil you, but the way how Last Jedi handles him is ultimately massively disappointing. Like,
yeah, I'll admit that. I'll say that too. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, totally.
Beyond it's disappointing beyond imagination, and in many ways, it felt like the latest MCU movies, like Thor Ragnarok, for example. There was too much there were too many moments where movie tries to almost force you to laugh. It jokes too often throughout the entire movie. Like, no, even Jar Jar Binks doesn't try so hard to make you laugh like a lot of parts of The Last Jedi, especially the entire the planet, Casino Planet.
The Casino Planet.
Where
I didn't like that.
Yeah.
I'll admit I didn't like that either.
Totally agree. No,
and even though it's like, to me, The Last Jedi is a movie with very cool moments, but as an entire picture, I didn't like it so much like other people. But I kind of see that the whole thing that people allow artistic freedom when it comes to Star Wars, but they destroy entirely when it comes to DC characters. And I think part of this comes from the fact that it's just that DC is much older and it has a huge background, much more bigger background than Star Wars. And especially if we take that Star Wars existed beyond 6 main movies, like there were books, video games, and all of this stuff did different stuff from the movies, like it enriched the lore, expanded universe it was called, but it is now abandoned by Disney officially, so it became legacy almost like a fan fiction, so it's not counted anymore. But when it was considered as canon, those things did pretty much the same as The Last Jedi. It expanded beyond what 6 main movies established, and I can see why people like The Last Jedi in that regard. Like, I like Man of Steel and Batman v Superman because they finally did something that nobody dared before, and in that regard I can understand people who like The Last Jedi. So I'm not going to be that harsh regarding those who liked it, but I personally had a hard time liking The Last Jedi. But I see the point.
Yeah, my husband did too, Artem, don't feel bad. And I myself am on the line. I have there's a lot of wiggling back and forth for me, and I'm not perfectly at peace with it either. But the most fascinating parallel between those two films and the outcome of it is watching the critics and how they're too prideful, because in the end they watch the movie, they make their decision, whether it's paid or not, and but they put it out there, and then when people disagree, they have issues. I have put out my incredibly nuanced and thoughtful and educated opinion, and my opinion is better than yours, therefore I am right. And Batman v Superman, this movie is bad. And when other people said, no, I think it's good. No, you're wrong. It's bad. Now The Last Jedi has come out and they say it's good. And the public goes, no, we hate it. And they go, no, you're wrong. It's good. And right there is where I'm starting to see that critics are way too full of themselves and have forgotten very much that they are not a law unto themselves, and that they only exist to provide their perspective on a film, and others who share their perspective might come in to see if it's worth it before they go pay money for that ticket. They are not the be and end all. They are not the final word. And they are really, really full of themselves. And I haven't had use for critics for years, but this just pushes it even over the top, where it's like, all of you are useless to me, and I will pay no attention to what you say, because I do not appreciate the idea that you think your opinion of a film means more than anything else, especially when half of you have never had education on what an actual film critic is supposed to be. So you're out. They're out for me. But it's astounding to watch them argue online and put out there and be annoyed and frustrated that the public doesn't just get in line behind what they say. I say it's this, so therefore you should think it too. And that's completely ridiculous. And it was astounding to watch it happen in reverse with The Last Jedi. And I was like, what in the heck is going on here? It felt like we were in some weird parallel universe. And then my favorite was watching somebody, I don't remember, some random comment I saw somewhere. Somebody was like, I just wish, as a Star Wars fan, I could say that I liked this movie and not get hate for it. And I'm like, welcome to the club, baby. We got jackets. It is amazing to see people on the other side suddenly be like, whoa, what the frick is this? This doesn't feel good, to like something and then get pounded on for liking it. Yeah, it really sucks, doesn't it? Doesn't it, an honest person? Doesn't it? Doesn't it really suck? So maybe we as people should think about not doing that to other people. And Artyom, you have my greatest respect, because again, you said, I didn't really like it, but I'm not going to be harsh on the people who did. Good man, you're a good example, because I'm real tired of that, where it's like, oh my gosh, you just don't realize how bad it sucks, and therefore you are stupid. And that is so sad and lame, because art everywhere is subjective. And so, yeah, it's just made me give up on the human condition even more, because it's like, wow, we're all so prideful and stupid. I just kind of want to burn them all.
I just couldn't believe what critics were saying regarding Last Jedi, because it's in exact opposite what they were saying about Zack Snyder's DCEU movies. Like,
yes.
they were praising The Last Jedi for not being like the nostalgia. They praised it for going away from nostalgia and making a lot of new things with this universe. But when Zack Snyder tried to do exactly the same with Superman and other DC characters, they were like, no, I want my Christopher Reeve Superman back. I want my Tim Burton Batman back. Like, what the hell are you doing?
Yes.
And
the hypocrisy is so real.
Yeah.
And you're totally right. And just on a very side note, and this is nothing against the film. I'm good with the film. The film is fine. But I got real sick of reading the early reviews for Black Panther and having somebody go, man, this is a story with gravitas about finding your own identity and finding your place in the world and feeling like an outsider. And I just really applaud these guys for doing that. And I'm like, no kidding. Boy, it's just amazing. What other film can I think about that has done that in recent years with a superhero? Gosh, let me think. Oh, gee, Man of Steel? And so I'm getting real tired of people picking and choosing, when to applaud that kind of thing and when to pounce on it and just beat it to death. So, yeah, I'm done with the world.
Yeah.
But you're right. That's exactly what they did. And I was like, is this not, what has been done before? And yet you just hated it and shredded it with everything in your being? I don't understand the difference. And I don't understand why suddenly your opinion should mean more than other people who are paying money to sit down and watch it. So, yeah.
Having not seen the film, I did notice one thing about the coverage, which is that we kind of lose all sense of nuance in the conversation. Like, this movie has to be garbage, or it has to be a masterpiece. It absolutely cannot be anything in the middle. It can't even be like you can't make a halfway, like, you can't be like, yeah, that was an okay Star Wars movie. Like, there's no option for doing that, which I think is a shame, because people are going to make okay Star Wars movies, especially as they get more and more of them.
Yeah.
The more movies they make, the more middling movies are going to slip through, which is fine. It doesn't have to be a bad Star Wars movie to be like an okay Star Wars movie. But like the other thing too is that like it became like it's become so much about dichotomy, and it's become so much about like binary positions. And the narrative that's emerging right now is this idea that like if you hate The Last Jedi, then you're a misogynist. And if you love The Last Jedi, then you love women. And it's like, it's just so frustrating looking at the Star Wars franchise and seeing the ugly shit they're doing in marginalizing these women of color that they're casting, in casting basically three actresses with the same fucking face for three different movies, and like pretending like that's feminist, pretending like we're moving in a feminist direction by just putting another white girl up front and center, and that anyone who disagrees with that is then the exact opposite. Everyone who disagrees with that is a misogynist, and the only reason you could hate The Last Jedi is because you hate women. And it's like, it's exhausting. It's exhausting because like it keeps us from having a really good conversation about how these movies need to improve, because they do. And that's the thing.
Yes.
So that was what's most frustrating for me about Batman vs. Superman, is that I immediately after the movie, I was like, well, I would have changed X, Y, and Z. And I didn't ever get to have structured conversations about X, Y, and Z because I spent the next year defending it nonstop, just defending its right to exist. And it's like, that's ridiculous. I shouldn't have to do that. I should be able to sit down and be like, hey, I thought that this transphobic line was absolutely unnecessary and really fucked up, and it kind of, it taints the movie for me. And I wanted to have conversations about how the nightmare scene made me really uncomfortable, and how I hope that carried through into something better. And now we'll never find out if it carried through into something better. Yeah. But like, I wanted to have those conversations, and I feel the frustration for people who liked The Last Jedi and people who felt lukewarm about The Last Jedi. Being able to sit down and be like, hey, like, I don't have to hate this film in order to say, wait, there are problems. Because I know for a fact, having read what I've read about the film, that that characters of color were marginalized in this film.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't want to spoil anybody, but, I got conversations for you, Danielle. We got to talk after you've seen this film, because I want to talk to you about this. So,
I mean, but we need to have those conversations, and to pretend like that's not an issue with misogyny is bullshit. Straight up bullshit. To pretend like that's not an issue with misogyny, and to pretend like anybody who didn't like this film is automatically, mad because there are women in it is so reductive. And it feels a lot like what people have done to the DCEU fandom, which is to say, like, there are 10 racist, misogynist Trump supporters in your fandom, so that's who you are. And it's like, that's so unfair and so ridiculous to do. And it's lazy. It doesn't allow for us to have conversations about this. I'm really concerned about what the new nerd is based on this kind of stuff.
Well, also, and it's also the perfect way to shut people down. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Nick, but like to shut them down and immediately discount them, so you don't have to have a conversation because you just want to be right about it all. And so it's the fastest way to be like, nope, you don't matter, and we can't talk about this because look what you are. And then, okay, now I can keep on, moving on and trying to convince other people I'm right. It's very frustrating. Sorry, Nick, go ahead.
No, and that's why, like, this whole, like, Black Panther thing of, like, this Facebook group of people who are racist Star Wars fans and who are alt-right supporters, who are not DC fans. When all these news outlets are saying racist DC fans are trying to take down Black Panther, and all these people like on Tumblr and Twitter or whatever are like, oh, well, it's DC fans, so I'm not surprised they're trying to take down a black movie. When it's like, no, you don't get to do that. No, and then yesterday I was like, because like I think it was like that Now This page or whatever posted a video about it, and I'm like, did you guys even do your research on the fact that these aren't even like DC fans, that it's racist Star Wars fans and alt-right supporters? And people are like, oh, here we go with the not all DC fans bullshit. Like, and people are like,
that's crazy. The crazy thing is that they don't say none of these headlines say racist. Like, they just say DC fans.
Yeah, that's my favorite. Well,
that's the crazy thing, is that they're basically erasing that this is fucking racism in the first place. Yeah. Like, if they want to tank DC fans, that's one thing, but to pretend like there's not actually racism happening when it's definitely what it is, that's extra slimy. That's fucked up. Like, that's a fucked up way to cover that, and that's shitty journalism at the basic level. It's really bad.
And then it was just frustrating.
It makes me so mad.
That's why it was like frustrating. People were like, oh, see, like now you're going with the not all DC fan, just like saying like not all white people are racist. But it's like when
I'm going with the not DC fans, you retards.
I understand the whole it's annoying when people are like, oh, not all white people are racist, because people are making the point like, yeah, we know not all DC fans are racist, but when I'm looking at things like these fucking clickbait articles saying like basically calling us racist. And all these people on Tumblr are like, oh, well, it's DC fans, so I'm not surprised. When we're being, like, grouped together with this group of fucking racists, misogynist pieces of shit who are just pissed at Disney for starting to include women and people of color, like, these people never do the research. They just see a headline and they're like, well, I'm not surprised. Like, the articles are shitty. People aren't even doing their proper research themselves. And then the people reading these, all they see is the headline. And it's frustrating. Like, how many times, like, on all these articles, I've done, like, thousands of notes on Tumblr. But, like, the other day, like, I posted, like, hey, Comic Book Debate, the site I'm writing for, did this awesome thing where we raised over $5,000 for the school in New York. It's mostly an African-American made-up school to go see Black Panther for free because they never get to do these sort of field trips, and we did that.
Yep.
And these news sites, they slowly started to do that, and I posted that, and I'm not trying to like say like, oh, you guys need to like boost my post, but I'm just saying like stuff like that like doesn't even have like 200 notes. The notes about the thing calling us racist DC fans, that gets like 2,000 notes because everyone believes that we're racist.
Yeah.
And that's so fucking shitty. And we can't even defend ourselves with everyone being like, oh, we know.
The shitty thing to me about it is that it's not us. If it was us, we would have the opportunity to call it out. We would have the opportunity to address our people.
We'd be like, what are you doing? Sit down.
Like, if it was one of us, if it was actually part of our fandom, we would have the opportunity to, and that would be our responsibility, would be to go to that person, go to those people and say, hey, this isn't fucking cool. You need to cut it out. You need to knock it off. And, actually address the problem, because we'd be more than happy to do that, and I would be more than happy to do that. I'd be more than happy to police our fandom, our people. But the most frustrating thing about it is it's not even like a toxic part of our fandom. It's not us. It's not part of our fandom. So we have no pull with these people. We have no ability to address anything. And it's like nobody actually wants any action done. Like nobody wants anything done. It's just like a giant cycle of just like constructed outrage, instead of just being like, hey, like like, what is the purpose of these articles? What are we drawing attention to? Especially since they don't even use the word racist. Like, they just pretend like it's like the DC fans are such dickheads.
Yep, inflaming
that, like,
outrage. Sorry, go over, Rebecca.
Oh, sorry. Something that always, like, really threw me is that people were like, this is kind of changing now, but back in the day, people would be like, oh, the DCEU, and the Snyder fans especially. Snyder fans are all white men, and they're racist and they're misogynist. And it's like, and people comparing us to Nazis and stuff. And I'm like, how can we be Nazis if we openly adore Ezra Miller and Gal Gadot? How can we be Nazis? We are all out here talking about how amazing they are. How is it possible that we're Nazis? And then, like, people didn't want to believe that there was a lot of people of color and women in the DCEU fandom. And now that it's changing and they're realizing that their narrative is wrong, I kind of put I screenshot this blogger. She's been going after Zach for like a week. Like, what's her name? Ashley Lynch or something like that? I don't know.
Exactly who you're talking about.
And she's been going after Zach for like a week, and she won't shut up. And she's like, she made this post like, why are these POC people like supporting Zack Snyder? And it's like, you're trying to be woke, but you're clearly not an ally if you're like saying that you know better than us or something. Like, seriously? And also, like, kind of just going back to the idea of like it has to be, you're either evil or you're not, you're either this or you're not. Like, people do kind of have this with the comic book movie genre. They have this kind of, they don't see nuance, kind of, like, it's like black or white for them. So you can't just be like, I thought that this movie was mediocre. Like, you have to be like, oh, it's shitty. Like, there's a bunch of MCU movies that are mediocre, but everyone has denounced them as utter garbage. And I'm just like, maybe it's not garbage, maybe it's just mediocre. Why does it have to be terrible or good? Like, why can't it be somewhere in the middle? You know what I mean? Like, with Batman v Superman, with the outrage about that, rather with the discourse about that, like, it's like, the people were either making videos about, it's terrible, and there are people making videos about, oh, it's actually good. And I'm like, does anybody think that it's just okay? Because when I first saw it, I thought that it was okay, and then I saw this absolute war going on, like angels versus devils, about the dark side and the light side, and I'm just like, nobody has like a middle opinion about this.
I think, unfortunately, as Danielle described, you end up not being able to have one. You know, even if you have it, you end up being recruited to one side or the other. You can't say, well, it was okay, I just kind of enjoyed it, because they'll be like, oh, right, it sucked, didn't it? You hated it, didn't you? No, I thought it was good. And so you end up falling on one side or the other without even meaning to, because you're right, there's this great pressure in society to choose a side, and there is no middle ground anymore. And that's really, really distressing.
It's bigger than comic book films too.
Oh yeah, yes, it's like, bigger than fandom.
The reaction to Cloverfield has been really confusing to me, because like people are so mad that it's like a lukewarm movie. Like, they're like, this just like, how dare they make a middling sci-fi film? And I was like, it was kind of like, I didn't hate it. I didn't enjoy it all that much, but I didn't hate it. Like, I don't know where these people are coming from with all their passion about whether or not J.J. Abrams makes a fucking space movie. I don't know. And I'm outside the fandom, so maybe like that's a huge slight. But you know, it's just so weird to me that like everybody has to have like a screaming loud opinion about it. And I think a lot of it is just that it gets you attention more than being like, yeah, I saw Cloverfield last night. It was pretty good.
Yeah, so I think also like
nobody wants to reblog that. So
yeah, this is true. And then also, oh sorry, go ahead.
Katie, I think Katie, you said that, but I think you know how the critics are really pissed about the Cloverfield coming out on Netflix. It's taken a lot of their power away, because everyone can now critique it at the same time. No one's seen it before anyone, and it's available straight away. which then goes back to your point about the whole they get all the power because they get to see it a week or two before us, and in some cases however long before us anyway. And personally, my opinion on The Last Jedi, I enjoyed the movie. I don't think it was as great as The Force Awakens. I don't know.
It had some amazing visuals, I will say.
Like, I love those little ice
visuals. I was like, ooh, there were some nice ones in there. You know, I'll go with
that.
Those
ice boxes were really, really cool. Like those ice creatures when they were in the... I think it's in the trailer. It's in the trailer. I didn't spoil it.
Okay, fair.
As far as I know, it's in the trailer. Sorry.
Yes, you're right. There's a quick glimpse of them. You're right.
But they're not an integral part of the plot, so don't worry. Haven't spoiled anything. They were cool to watch, like run around. That white planet at the end, that was cool. Again, it's in this trailer. But yeah, the field thing just shows how much critics feel like they need to have power over any type of media, whether it's movie or TV shows.
Yeah,
I think
a little bit sold into it. Talking about like the middle ground though, and how like it's impossible to find that and stuff. I do think, honestly, I saw an infographic just a little bit ago, and I think I remember this. Like, they talked about how many studios were making films like in the 80s, and how many are making them now, and the numbers drastically different. Like back then, you had smaller studios and little studios and studios everywhere, stuff like that. You had somewhere around 30-something studios operating, and now we've got like what, 15? You know, like it suddenly has become much smaller. And they've gone for such giant tentpole productions and built them up so much that I'm dating myself. I'm sorry. But like, I remember the days where you just go watch a movie and then you get done. And you're right, there's no social media. That has changed things too. And then you go, okay, that was a movie, you know. And sometimes it's like, oh, that was good. And sometimes it was like, that was cool. There were lots of basic middle of the road movies that came out in the day. And that was just kind of par for the course. Lots of stuff was pretty basic. It was just a basic movie. It was good. And then you had the ones that slipped past and managed to catch everybody's attention and become astounding blockbusters. You know, you had the ones that they expected more revenue for, but it wasn't like as big of a tentpole production. And then you had the ones that just kind of came out and were never heard from again. It all happened then too, but there were so many more of them. Now it feels like it's like everybody's got their tent poles. And that's what they really want to do is the tentpole movies now to make the big money. And so they do less movies and they build them up more. So the expectation is so horrific that you have no choice but to be extremely excited and feel fulfilled, or extremely excited and feel let down. There is no middle ground anymore, because the build up and the expectation and stuff like that is you have no choice but to get swept up into it. I'm so grateful that when Man of Steel came out, I wasn't paying attention and I wasn't on social media a whole lot that year. It was a weird year. And so I just completely missed almost everything. And so I just went and sat down and watched it. What a great blessing that was, because I really had no idea what I was going into, and I just sat down and went, oh, I like this. And that was it. Because I know some people afterward who talked about it, the build-up was so amazing, you know, so huge that your expectations get way beyond your control, and then you sit down and like, no movie will ever hit that expectation that's been built up by the promo business, you know. And so yeah, I think the nature of movies has changed, social media has changed, and critics have changed it, and it I don't really think it's a great thing personally. It makes it a lot harder to just go, yeah, I saw a movie, it was good.
That hit on something that's actually super tragic, which is kind of like the death of the garbage 80s film. And I'm so hurt, because I can think of 10 garbage 80s films that if they hadn't got made, my life would be less rich and wonderful.
Right.
And that's, yeah, I mean, I think that's an unintended consequence. And it's real sad. It's super terrible. Like, I can think of, like, half my film collection is just terrible films from the 80s that I love dearly. That were just like kind of like put together without a lot of thought, and just sort of like, what if we had a lot of fun for a couple weeks? You know, like
Yep.
like just terrible. Like I love those, and those never would happen in this day in age. It would never happen. And that's super sad. Like we'd be missing so many great films, and I'm sure we're missing out on a lot of really great small films that could be happening right now.
Yep.
Guys, can I just kind of defend myself? I don't like, and sometimes I even hate The Last Jedi, not because of what social media makes people think why people don't like it, not because of women or people of color. The thing is that when it comes to Man of Steel, I knew that this movie is not going to be a continuation of any of previous Superman movies. It's going to be a fresh new start. But The Last Jedi has an 8 in the title, and based on that, and since it has 8, then it's going to be a straight continuation of previous 7 movies. So I had certain expectations based on what those 7 movies gave me, and The Last Jedi just didn't met my expectations and pretty much let down me regarding certain storylines.
Yes, and that's very much the problem my husband had too. So don't worry, nobody's judging you, and I totally understand Artyom, because it was very much like, even if you didn't see the other 6 films and just saw The Force Awakens, and then you go, okay, and then here's the next one, many story threads that were planted and ready to go, you know, and stuff like that, and were suddenly just kind of severed or abandoned, and you're like, wait, what happened? And so it doesn't feel like a continuation of the first film. You could sense the difference in control or creativity or whatever it is, that they suddenly went, let's go this way, and they went completely, almost U-turn left instead of going right, and it was weird. And I don't think, like, I do think that some people got severely overinvested in their fan theories, and then were disappointed that didn't play out, because fans do that, but that's not everybody. I had certain theories that was like, that'd be cool if that was true, but if it's not, that's cool too. I'll just go and see what it is. And then it was like, wow, that where did it go? Like, you know, we couldn't even find it. And so it was like, it just felt like a really abrupt and weird second installment of what's supposed to be the last trilogy, you know? So I hear you. I totally do. And I get you. And that's a lot of the reason why my husband walked out and was very dissatisfied. So yeah, I get you.
Especially, I'm a huge fan of the prequels. I think prequels have the best lightsaber fight ever.
Yeah.
And in that regard, Last Jedi also let me down. I was expecting something at least on the same level, but it was not even near that. Like, Episode 1, Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn against Darth Maul, it's perfect. The soundtrack, the choreography, it was the usage of the Force. It was just mind blowing, and to see that in 2018 movie doesn't have even close something like that in an 8 movie of the franchise, it was just disappointing. Like, really.
Yes, it was. I hear you.
And it's so
totally
funny to be on such differing ends of this. Like, I'm not saying, like, again, that The Last Jedi is like a masterpiece. Like, there's plenty of flaws with that movie. Like, did we need a scene of Luke drinking some weird alien's weird milk? No.
Don't spoil too much. But that was
okay. That's not spoiling anything. That's just and then they're just, and then like the whole like casino planet thing, I didn't really care for. And then not to go into details, but I just didn't care for that really.
Yeah.
And I feel like, again, not trying to spoil too much, but I just feel like Finn should have been used a little better.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I did like how Poe was used. I did like Luke's story. I didn't like how Leia was out of it for most of it and then came back, because in the entire movie I was worrying of what was going to happen because, you know, Carrie Fisher. But I really enjoyed the movie, and I completely respect your opinion and how you feel, even though I completely disagree. But that's the thing, is that, like, there is, like, middle ground there. Like, again, you don't have to, like, I don't love The Last Jedi. I enjoy it. I enjoy The Force Awakens more, but that's okay, and you're allowed to feel however you want. So, in comparison to Batman v Superman, I think, in terms of the way it's perceived, it's Star Wars. So I wasn't surprised the critics, like, love it as much as they do, because I think so far the critics have shown that they pretty much love anything Star Wars, or most Disney properties.
So
yeah, because they didn't love Star Wars when it was prequels and not Disney quality properties. But you're right. They do. If it seems to be a Disney property, they'll appreciate it.
Yeah. So that's all I have to really say on that. So just so that way I can move on to the next question. Okay, maybe now's a good time since we're pretty far into this. I know Kim the Nest from Tumblr had a question from you, Katie.
Yeah, she did, and it's an awesome one. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Anyway, okay, we answered it in a commentary somewhere, but honestly, I don't think we've ever dipped into this as deeply as we could, because I could yak about this for hours. Okay, Kim Nunez, who I deeply love and is my mutual on Tumblr, says, I'm curious to know how everyone interpreted Bruce's dialogue during their fight in BvS, where he mentions, quote, your parents to Clark. I bet your parents taught you that you mean something, that you're here for a reason. My parents taught me a different lesson, dying in the gutter for no reason at all. If the following scene was so pivotal in part because it's the realization that Clark may have a human mother, why was, quote, parents brought up? You'd think Bruce's obsession with the alien would have him believing this being hatched out of an egg or something. I really love this woman. Anyway, as far from any humanization as possible, unless the focus wasn't Clark's offhand figurative parents, but rather what Bruce says about his own, the lesson he learned from their senseless murder, what did he mean? ? Okay, I have lots of thoughts on this, but I will, defer to anybody else who wants to yak about it first. Anyone?
I think.
Go ahead.
Wait. I feel like it all depends on how much the public knows about Superman already. Mm-hmm. Like, assuming that, according to tradition, like, Lois has interviewed him at some point. We have to wonder, like, did she ask him, like, does the public know that he was raised by humans? I mean, because he told the military that, unless the military decided not to divulge that particular information, I understand. But remember, he told Swanwick at the end of Man of Steel that he grew up in Kansas. So I think it's totally plausible that the military has decided to keep that information on lockdown. And the public itself doesn't know that he was raised on this planet. But the thing is, Zod was like, for many years or something. I don't know exactly what he said, but he
does say many
years.
You've
been harboring one of my citizens. So either Bruce thinks that he was like a child, and when he came here, and like remembers his Kryptonian parents, or he thinks that. Or he knows that he figures that he has Earth parents, but he just doesn't see them as, like, relevant or something.
That right there is what I came down to. Very much like, it's easy to talk about somebody's parents. We look at everybody out here, people we don't like, or people we disagree with, or people we even hate, and we know that they were born from somebody. But we're not thinking about their parents. We don't really care about their parents. And it's easy to dehumanize them in our view and not look at them as someone's child, but look at them as something to be hated. Yeah. And I definitely think that, he's talking about parents because he wants to bring it back to his. Mine died in a gutter for no reason, and that's why the Martha is so important, because it's not just, you have parents, that's great. He doesn't, the humanization doesn't come with the realization that Superman might have parents that either raised him or gave birth to him in whatever their planet he was born on. The humanization comes from the fact that one of them is named Martha. And that is the important part. You start to see people as human when you sit down in their home and see all the pictures of them being raised and the happy, smiling pictures of them with their parents, and realize they've got the same books on the shelf you do. And that, maybe even though you guys have totally different opinions or thoughts about things, you might not be as different after all. And so I think that's why the Martha part was so very important. And it's one of many reasons we've talked about why he says Martha and not my mother, because it's story-wise, the Martha is what snaps Bruce enough to get a really visceral reaction out of him. It doesn't even make him go, oh, your mom's name is Martha? That's cool. We should be buddies. He freaks out. He completely freaks out because he dared besmirch that name his mother's name with his alien lips, you know? And then it's only after Lois explains that's his mother's name that's when the humanization occurs. And it's like, holy frick. And his mom's name is Martha too, you know? Okay, this is a real person down here, and I'm about to kill him. Maybe I'm not the good guy after all. But I agree. I totally agree. I've thought about that a lot too, and it was like I don't really know how much the public knows about him, and who he was raised by, or where his actual birth parents are, or anything like that. But what he does know is that he doesn't care until one of them has the same name as his mother.
Yeah.
You know.
Sorry.
Yes.
It kind of reminds me the Last Airbender cartoon is that throughout 2.5 seasons we were meant to think that Lord of Fire is this monster who has to be destroyed, but in the third season Aang comes across a photograph of Lord of Fire as a child with his parents alongside of him, and he realizes that Lord of Fire was like him. He was a child. He was raised by parents, so he's human. He instantly became humanized for him, and he couldn't bear a thought of killing a person who had parents who had same life as him, as being a child who was born with parents and raised. And so I think it's almost the same case, but more like the way how he mentions his parents regarding that they taught Superman that he's meant for great things. I think it comes from how Superman was perceived by the world as this divine being, almost like a god, and so his parents most likely were close to this, like maybe there were some sort of divine beings who taught this godlike child that he's meant for great things. And Batman kind of compares that, but I am just a human, and my parents were just human, and they simply died from the hand of a robber, and just he points at how different they are in this regard, that he had these parents who maybe were just as godlike as him, and so they had maybe some sort of a whole new perspective how the world works. But for him, world works this way. It only matters when you force it to matter.
That's excellent insight. And you have to wonder if it's also a dig, just like, you know, you were never a man, and, you know, smell that's fear and all that kind of thing. It may very well be another dig, and that, you know, they told you were divine, they told you were important, but you're not. You're not more powerful than I am, because I am about to kill you, you know, and it's very possible that it's another bit of a dig.
The juxtaposition of those two things, I think, is really important in terms of him actually just, like, verbally stating a understanding of their difference. Here's how we're different. I'm like this, you're like this. And then being faced with how alike they are, with a way in which they're alike that really matters on a bone deep level, that really matters to Bruce. And I think everything about that tail end of that scene is about manipulating Bruce into a place where empathy is possible. Because I think when we hurt other people, I don't think that we're conscious of the fact that they were once children and that they have parents, and I don't think that we necessarily forget it either. I think that we just don't care until we actually are forced to empathize, and that the essence of empathy is imagining how another person feels, and it's way easier to do that when you can actually, you know, find those ways in which you're alike. And what we do in that scene is we trigger Bruce, which is a huge part of it. He's extremely emotionally vulnerable in this moment, and that's really, really important, because I think that if he hadn't been triggered, I'm not sure that it would have penetrated the way that it did.
Agreed.
I'm not sure that he would have been, that his heart would have been open, but he didn't have a choice at the time. His heart, that's the essence of having a panic attack, is that your heart is open and you can't fucking close it, and it's terrible. And he's having this panic attack. He's in the middle of just, you know, a total emotional breakdown. And that Martha thing hits him, and all of a sudden he's able to sort of get into this place where he imagines what it might be like to be Superman. And, you know, I can't even, like, you know, and I casually think about it in my not vulnerable moments, what it might be like to be Superman. And it's just, it's overwhelming and upsetting and intense. And, you know, it's almost like what the audience failed to do in the face of Batman vs. Superman and Man of Steel, which is imagine what it might be like to be Clark. And I think that that's not an accident. I think that Zack looks at that and sort of says, like, well, here's the thing, like, this is what you're failing to do. What you're failing to do is really imagine, like, what would it be like? What would you realistically do in this situation? You know, forcing Bruce to go there. I mean, like, it's also a statement about bigotry, and it's a statement about racism. It's a statement about how we get out of that, which is by realizing how alike we are in the ways that matter. And yeah, I think we force him to organically experience empathy. And I think that's what makes the difference. And I don't know that it's necessarily about so much that he, you know, didn't conceptualize Clark a mother. I think it's about the fact that he was able to be like, this is a way in which we're actually, like, you know, the same.
Yep. I think people don't give Clark enough credit because in that scene, because the question everyone always asks is, why did he say Martha though? It's like, Bruce is famous. Like, he's a famous guy. Like, granted, when Clark saw him, he didn't recognize him, but, like, I don't know what a lot of famous people, I don't associate their names with their faces a lot of the time. So if you tell me something about, I don't know, like some celebrity, and you're just talking about them, I'll be like, oh, interesting. But if I see a picture of them, I'll be like, who's that? I don't know what their faces look like. It's totally possible that Clark heard about Bruce Wayne and, you know, knows that, you know, he's an orphan and stuff. And especially after the party where he heard Bruce, like, going down to go steal things from Lex Luthor, to think that Clark wouldn't do like a quick like internet search on the guy. Like, he just caught him doing some really shady stuff. You think that he's not gonna like look him up on Google later? Like, of course he is. So, you know, people don't really give Clark credit. I mean, I think it's totally possible. I mean, I actually believe, I don't think it's possible, I think he did look up Bruce Wayne and found out that his parents died, found out what his parents' names were, and in his moment of panic and realizing that he can't fight him off, decided to try and get him to empathize by deliberately using his mother's name.
I'm not sure that he's thinking that much just based on Cavill's performance. Personally, I think that
agreed. As a headcanon,
every time that we threaten,
fits. So,
yeah,
sorry,
every time we see anyone threaten his mother, he loses his goddamn mind. He does not. He's not calm in those moments. He almost barbecued Lex Luthor. He would not do that if he was like right, but he was not right. He was totally thinking about, you know, exploding Lex's face off. He was totally thinking about it in that moment. And I think that, like, you know, I don't know. I think my read on Cavill's performance is that he's just frantic for that period of time and just trying to do whatever he can do. I also never read Clark as as willing to manipulate folks in such a way. I kind of read Clark as him sort of, you know, kind of bumbling through human interaction. I don't know that he's exceptionally good at it, but I mean, maybe I don't get him. It's possible I don't give him enough credit either.
Yeah.
But I think that I just think it's practical. Like I think that the criticisms of this moment are so weird because, like, what does my mother mean to you? Like, like what?
Yeah.
How could he use that information if he's going to stab you in the face? He's not. He's about to stab you in the face. What information could he use that's going to be useful to him? Well, saying Martha Kent might help. And he does try to say Kent, but nobody's listening because nobody watches Henry Cavill be brilliant. Ever.
He is brilliant! No,
he's so good.
I totally
agree. But that's the thing.
It's a great headcanon. But he has been so clobbered by the kryptonite and by beating upon beating, and I agree. I don't think he's actually really thinking strategically, and as you see through the fight, he never truly thinks strategically during that entire fight. He starts off trying to talk to him, but after that, it all goes to crap in a handbasket, and he never is thinking, okay, and then I'm going to do this strategy. He's thinking, gosh damn it, I'm going to pound this dude until he just doesn't move anymore. You know, that's as far as he gets, because he's Superman.
You've also given him 2 years to become a strategic fighter and to figure out how to do things, and he still hasn't.
Batman's got
the awareness on that. He doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah, and so in the end, I admit, that is my preferred reading, even though that's a totally legit headcanon.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Is that my preferred reading is simply, you know, he gave the good fight as much as he could, but now he's been overpowered. He's about to die, and his last thought is, but she's going to die too, and I don't want that. That's all I've got, you know? In the end, you know, a guy facing death is, you know, more concerned for his mother than he is for himself. Which
I don't think he was trying to save him. I mean, I don't know.
You know, I agree. I think
what's beautiful,
simply going, if you're gonna kill me, can you please go save Martha Kent after? You know.
I think what's beautiful about that moment is it's literally like it's literally Superman asking for Batman to save him. In a sort of emotional way. It's really him just playing sort of a role that is familiar to Bruce, which is, you know, some people come and beg for his help. And that's something that you know, I think he approaches him in the first place that way, but it's kind of gorgeous to have Superman just be like, hey, Batman, can you help me, you know? And I think that it subverts so many toxic things about the way that we put these two characters together, because whenever we put Batman and Superman together, it's like a giant dick joust, and it makes me want to cry. And this is just, I mean, this is so much more pure than that, which is just like, what do they mean to each other? And you know, how does that kindness that's at the center of both of those characters interact? And I think that's way more interesting. It's a way more interesting question to ask about two characters that I really love and appreciate than, you know, who's gonna get up, I mean, like, who can beat who in the long run. It's all who can beat who. It's not an interesting question. An interesting question to me is, you know, how does the kindness interact, and what can they do for each other, and how do they enrich each other's lives?
Yep.
And you guys said it so beautifully, and so for myself, like as someone, and I don't mean to bring down the mood or anything, but as someone who has lost a parent, just hearing the name of someone you've lost in any capacity is triggering. Like, it's not like that's why it's so frustrating when people use the complaint, they're like, oh, he just said his mom's name, so now they're best friends. That's not what that moment was at all. Like, even after the fight's over, like, Clark's still uneasy about working with the guy, because first of all, he just tried to kill him. People forget that. And I feel like even then, like, without Lois, he still probably would have made because he was still angry at the fact that Clark even said the name.
I was gonna say, I still feel like he would have killed him if Lois hadn't shown up.
And it wasn't until Lois intervenes and says that's his mother's name, and that's when he realizes, like, oh my god, like, what have I become? Like, I've become he's like, I know it's a cliche thing, but he's literally become the thing he set out to destroy. And for himself, his whole journey in the last couple of years had been kill Superman. He represents the biggest threat to mankind. And so I have to be the one to do this. And when he realizes that Superman isn't this monster that he created in his mind, that he realizes, oh wait, something's wrong with me. I'm the one who's looking at this the wrong way entirely. I'm the one who almost killed an innocent man.
Yep.
I almost became Joe Chill, you know? Like, he became his parents' killer, in a sense. Or almost did. And for me, watching that moment, I'll never, ever agree with the criticisms. Because frankly, when I see it, I think it's a beautiful moment. And
me too.
It's so emotionally raw. And that's something you don't get in very many superhero films. And especially since this is literally the first live action movie of Superman and Batman together, period. And I think it is, people joke about, oh, like, they're both have moms named Martha, but I think that is important because at this point Bruce is so broken that and you can tell in this version, so his mother means more, not necessarily more to him, but is more important to him than how she's been portrayed in, like, the Nolan films or the other films, where it's like Thomas Wayne was the focus. Now that it's Martha, I think that also bothers people because people want to think of the father figure as the one he'll think of first, or like he's the one he's like looking forward to or trying to be, because that's all he was trying to do in the Dark Knight movies. So that's all he was trying to live up to his father's legacy. But in this, it's not Thomas, it's Martha. It was the last words his father said. Seeing his dead mother on the ground, that's what triggered him the most.
Yes.
Well, and if superhero movies have taught us anything, it's that mothers are expendable. So who cares? I mean, at the end of the day, that's what
true.
We're being taught systematically. I mean, like, does anybody remember that Thor's mom is dead? Did anyone?
I mean,
I don't know.
I mean,
yeah, I did. People forget.
That pissed me off when I saw that.
And then they buried her in like 3 minutes, and then it was like, and on we go, and never mention her again. It was like, thanks.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that, like, we're being taught that. So, like, when people regurgitate it, I'm not, terribly surprised, because the genre doesn't value motherhood, and it doesn't value that role in their lives, and I think that it's very much interested in the destruction of that role, because that's the only way that, if you follow the Freudian model, it's the only way that you can enter manhood is by crushing your mother's skull in your hand.
I'm just putting that image you brought up together with Clark hugging his mother, and I'm like, oh, I love him so much. I don't see.
But, like, that's the thing, is that like it is revolutionary. It is really important. The Martha moment is irreplaceable in the history of superhero, the superhero genre. It's absolutely one of the most important things, and I think that that's a lot of what the backlash is about, because that changes something that a lot of people do not want. They do not want this genre to be a genre that values motherhood at all, and a genre that values mothers as people and as central focuses of someone's life.
And that's why, like, I don't, like, when people criticize Martha, but then the whole, like, if you look at, like, Captain America Civil War, that last fight between Tony and Steve is because of the death of Tony's mother. Not even necessarily his father, his mother. And that's okay, but the Martha scene isn't. Like, I don't understand that at all.
That makes sense.
Well, I mean, I think that the Civil War scene, I think the reason it doesn't get as much backlash, I honestly do, is because it's very much a scene about his ownership of his mother, and not necessarily showing Steve his scars or being very vulnerable or anything like that. It's very much about, like, this man took something from me, I need to take revenge sort of thing. And I think that that's very different from, I think it's really different. And it was bound to get less pushback because it's a trope. I mean, like, it's traditional. It's this man is getting revenge on this man for taking woman who he owned.
Yeah, you're right. It's
in any fashion.
Vengeance. Yeah,
it is, and that's the ugly.
Okay,
that's the ugly part of Tony Stark.
That's the difference. Vengeance versus like connection over a mother. Okay, thank you. I really appreciate that. Okay.
And that's another thing that bothered me is that even though like Bucky pulled the trigger, at no point did Tony take into consideration that was never Bucky. He keeps blaming Bucky for everything in that moment when that wasn't him. He was literally under like mind control. So
the way I see it, like he was really emotional, and so he's not really thinking in a logical way.
But he's like that the entire movie,
But I wish that they would make the film actually spell that out if they were going to make it be that way. You know what I mean? Like, the way the narrative treats it is that it's totally okay to not even give that consideration, to not think about anything about how pissed you are and just try to kill somebody. And never later is he going, okay, so I might have gone over the top there. Sorry.
Well, that's one of the things that pissed me off so much about Justice League. It's like, these are role models.
Yeah, I think that's you have to. The narrative made it seem like it was okay,
Yeah.
So, that
oh my gosh, guys, we're spoiling Civil War, though.
Oh, please.
It's late. It's late. I can't say I did tags to Civil War spoilers a couple days ago on my Tumblr, so I guess I'm still making allowances for the crowd.
Maybe Nick, maybe you should like put a thing on this to say, hey, we talked about these movies, so.
I don't know. It's pretty vague. I'm not saying where Tony was or why, but I guess someone killed his mom. Yeah. Is that a spoiler?
Yes.
Yes.
Who cares?
It's just
people listening to this aren't here for Marvel; they're here for DC. So whatever.
There you go.
All right. Well, anyways, Kim, I want to thank you for your question. You always have great and thoughtful questions, and you're really, really sweet and nice. So I want to say thank you so much for that and for sending that to Katie for us to answer. You always have great questions. So anytime you want to ask us anything, even if it's not a Q&A, feel free to shoot away, because we'll dive into that for like an hour.
Okay, guys. So I don't know whether you're going to carry on, but I do need to go. It was really, really nice doing this. I hope I didn't sound crazy.
Oh no,
with the
no,
Green
no,
Goblin
no.
shit.
It's like the best thing ever.
Hey ho,
That.
that's how memorable Marvel is to me. I mean, don't get me wrong. I still know my shit with what's going on, but
no, that was charming as hell. I'm very pleased. That was wonderful.
I think I should watch more Marvel movies and just describe them as they go along. Maybe
honestly,
it should be listen to me making good out of myself.
If you want to set up a Tumblr where you just describe Marvel movies, I would follow you.
I would too.
Okay.
We need to create like our own YouTube series of her explaining each Marvel movie.
Fatma needs to be explaining a Marvel movie, and then we'll just listen to it and laugh. And then
it's perfect.
I make a lot myself, and you guys get to laugh. So, win-win.
All right, well, thank you for joining us, Fatma, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a good one.
Bye.
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 Yeah, that was really funny. I feel bad for laughing, but yeah.
That was awesome.
Okay, so to move on to the next question. This is from John1106 on Tumblr. And he says, hi, I want to ask about Justice League opening box office. Fans and critics or bloggers saying that the reason why Justice League has had a disappointing box office is because of the poor reception of BvS. Now, of course, Justice League has poor legs because of the factors like poor CGI and the reshoots, but those kinds of things aren't usually reflected during the first opening weekend because it took some time for general audience to find out later. Do you think the Justice League low opening box office is really because of BvS, or is it because of the behind-the-scenes mess?
I don't think it has to do with BvS at all, because people love to hate the DCEU. and the people who people love the discourse. So I don't think people will be like, oh, BvS sucked, so let's avoid the next DC movie. People are like, oh, BvS sucked, let's go watch it so we can be in the discourse and have fan wars and stuff.
Well, you have a good point.
Yeah, well, I think what a lot of it is when we all saw it opening weekend, or whenever we all saw it, we didn't feel the need to go see it again right away. Even for those who liked it or didn't like it, I felt okay. I couldn't see it until a few days later anyway, but there are a lot of people who just hated it the first time they saw it, so there were no repeat viewings. Like, opening weekend alone, I saw Batman v Superman, I saw the early screening, I saw it opening night, and then I saw it 3 times in the course of the opening week.
Yes, I saw it all 3 nights.
Yep.
That's I did Thursday, Friday, I did Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So I saw it I saw Batman versus Superman 3 times.
Yeah, and then I went on to see that movie for a total of 9 times, including the Ultimate Edition screening they had. So for me, I wanted to keep seeing that movie, and and at the time, I was single, so I didn't really I had a ton of free time on my hands. So I saw it just by myself some nights, and then I went to either the drive-in by myself or the movies by myself, and I didn't care because I just wanted to keep seeing that movie, and it was just an amazing movie to just keep seeing again and again and again because there's so many layers to it, and I could just, even if there's a couple of scenes I didn't necessarily want to see or whatever, I'm like, well, this is my bathroom break, so I'll just go, whatever. But with Justice League, it's just for me, it was a bit of the behind the scenes. Well, the behind the scenes didn't bug me as much because I thought, up until that point, the trailers and everything were like, oh hey, this is still Zack's movie, but with some Joss stuff in it. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I know it's not going to be exactly what I want, but I'll settle. And then I watched the movie the first time, and at first, I'll admit, I kind of drank the Kool-Aid, and I was like, yeah, I liked it. Obviously, the Joss Whedon stuff stuck out, but the more I thought about the stuff I didn't like, the more I'm just I don't want to keep seeing this movie a ton. I'll see it with my little brother because I want to see it again at least for that last end credit scene. And then I saw it, I think, one more time? No. Did I only see it twice? I can't remember. I think I only saw it twice. Yeah, I only saw it twice. So for me, it's just, I just didn't have the desire to keep seeing it again and again. And I don't for myself, I don't like wasting money on movies I don't love. I saw Batman v Superman as many times as I did because I loved it. I saw Man of Steel 6 times in theaters because I loved it. I saw The Force Awakens 10 times in theaters because I loved it. For these movies, I'll see them again and again if I find it, worthy of it. But for, Justice League, because of the whole situation, I didn't want to give any more of my money to Warner Brothers. That's not something I wanted to do. So I think for hardcore fans who didn't like the movie, they just didn't want to see it again opening weekend, and that's why it made under $100 million, even less than Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman couldn't help the reception of that movie because even her stuff was meddled with, and it became just fucking Joss Whedon's Wonder Woman script thrown into Justice League. So it's... Yeah, so I think a lot of it came from that. I think some of it had to do with BvS, unfortunately. I'm not going to necessarily be 100% blind to that. There are people who hated Batman and Superman so much that they just didn't want to see another Zack Snyder movie. And when they heard that Justice League wasn't good...
I want to say it's less BvS and more it was Zack's movie, or that we were told it still was, and I think there might be some to that. Sorry, continue.
No, and then because there are still people who are like, oh, the movie's still bad because it was still Zack's movie. People are still blind to the fact that...
I know!
It's still,
okay.
People still want to believe that it's Zack's fault that the movie did so poorly. What? I don't get it, but, just for myself, that's just from what I was able to see. So what are your guys' takes on why you think the box office has been affected? Do you guys think it was BvS or more just the reception of the movie itself?
I agree that the hardcore fan base was disappointed and didn't go repeat times, and I think that did make a difference. I also agree that there was probably some portion of people that went, it's a Zack Snyder movie, I'm not sure I want to go. But there was also tons of people who were like, oh, Joss Whedon has had his fingers in this, we should go. So that should have made up a fair amount of difference, you would think. And I do think the troubled history made a little bit of a difference, but honestly, I don't know how to justify it except that it's a subpar product, and that subpar product shows. You know, I don't know how else to phrase it, but like when movies like don't do well from the very, very beginning, there's something screwy somewhere, and it's not just the movies that came before it. I mean, I totally agree that I'm sure there were some that went just so they could hate on it and be part of the discourse. You know, I mean, if it did well, like Batman v Superman, and then dropped off, it's like, okay, where you can see where a lot of people went just because it was hyped and they expected something different, and then they came away disappointed and never went again. Then there's the rest of us who went like 87 times, you know, but this didn't even have that high of a start and then a drop off. So right from the very beginning, there was something hinky with this film, and it did not make contact like it was supposed to. Mm-hmm. Now we know why, but at the time, like, you know, you're right. I was like, okay, I'll settle. I'll go in and see. You know, they're telling me it's Zach's movie, so I'll go in there and you know, hopefully I'll get most of it, and that'll be fine. And so, like, it's not like we just didn't ever go, but we certainly didn't go after that, and I think that made a huge, huge difference. And then the word spread like wildfire, that it sucked, and, you know, it just, I think that didn't help either. I don't know how else to say it. Like, I don't think it's all BvS. It can't possibly be all BvS. I do think the fact that Zach was touted as the director did have some kind of merit in certain decisions made by certain moviegoers, but not everybody. So,
I think that there is no blame to BvS because people didn't like Zack Snyder already since Man of Steel, as we can say, and even after that, Batman v Superman became the most successful DCEU movie to date. Mm-hmm. Even after Man of Steel. So if people didn't like Zack Snyder that much, they wouldn't go to Batman v Superman already, I think. Mm-hmm. And also, Justice League had other characters besides Zack Snyder's Superman and Batman. Even those who hated Batman v Superman, a lot of people were still praising Wonder Woman a lot. Her introduction and such, and a lot of people liked her solo movie, so there would be at least the reason to go and see Justice League at least for her alone.
Yes.
But it also didn't help the situation, so I think most of the reason goes to what happened behind the scenes of this movie.
Agreed. I think, I don't know, like, BvS came out, and there was the whole, you know, kerfuffle about that went on forever, stuff like that. 6 months later, we got Suicide Squad, and it still had a hugely big opening. Yes, different director, but still part of the DCEU. And if BvS, like the thing I keep getting from people is that they seem to think that BvS just killed everything, and nobody had enjoyment for DCEU after that, which is just patently untrue. Because you're right, Suicide Squad had a huge opening, and it has taken just as much abuse afterward, you know, but it still had a huge opening. And then Wonder Woman did extremely well. And so, I have no pure explanation for why this did so badly from the get-go, other than that it just, there were too many cooks in the kitchen, and it shows from the very beginning.
I mean, the coverage... Not many people knew about, like, the director switch up, but it definitely did shake confidence, and I think it shook fan confidence, and it shook casual confidence to be like, oh, well, you know, I mean, like, we were really privy to the situation. Like, all of us were super informed about what was happening behind the scenes and how. I mean, like, we were informed to the party line. We didn't know what actually happened, but we had the party line, and we had heard the entire explanation, and everyone knew about what happened with Zach, and that was a big part of what we were going into this film knowing. But the general public just saw them replace a director a couple months before the end of the film, and then replace him with a director with a very, very different feel and style and tone and everything. And this idea that, like, we didn't really know who directed this movie, and that everything was sort of like, you know, uncertain and up in the air, and Warner Brothers didn't come out real strong at any point during the process. Like, they more or less haven't publicly made a call on this whole situation. For all of that to happen, it must have shaken the confidence of the casual audience too. I mean, I know that the fan audience was anxious about this movie, but the casual audience too, I think, was their confidence was probably shaken in this. Yep. And I think that confidence is everything when it comes to opening weekend box office.
Agreed. So do you think then that the crappy coverage that is continually negatively slanted by the press and the websites and all, and the critics and all kind of stuff like that has started to take its toll? Especially for that film?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think so. I think that was bound to happen. I don't know how you can't get around that.
You can't. And
Warner Brothers thought it could defeat it, and they were wrong.
Yeah, and with their continual, press of even that film, right up until it was like, oh look, problem after problem after problem, and it was always had a negative slant to it. That's definitely going to rob a lot of confidence in the casual moviegoer who just looks at headlines and goes, woo, that movie looks troubled. So, okay, you have it at some point.
And that's what, it was so disappointing seeing that box office just, and honestly, at the time it sucked because I still liked the movie, but now reflecting on it, Warner Brothers deserved it.
They did. They earned it. I admit that was the one film I wasn't distressed to see it go down. I was like, sorry guys, but you brought this on yourself. I killed myself to go to Batman v Superman because I loved it so much, and I would, wanted that box office to be as big as it could possibly be, and I would happily contribute to that. But this one, it was like, this is awful, and you did this to yourselves. So
that's why I think
they need to suffer and recognize that they made a bad choice there. Otherwise, they'll just keep thinking that's the way to go.
Yeah. And that's why, looking at Batman v Superman's box office, it didn't crack $1 billion. So what? That movie made over $800 million worldwide, and that was because the passionate fans kept seeing it again and again and again and again and again. And there are also other places in the world where, critics weren't necessarily as big of a factor, so it played well in places where, Rotten Tomatoes wasn't that big of a deal. So if people liked the movie, they just kept going on and seeing it again and again. So, we always think of, North America being, the end-all, be-all of movie box office, but we have to also take into account all the various countries in the world where, again, critics don't really matter as much, or, all these, websites where, oh, this doesn't get 75% of Rotten Tomatoes, or an 8 out of 10 on Metacritic, or whatever these sites are, then it's garbage. A lot of these people don't always see those and we're like, oh, now I'm not gonna see the movie. If they're excited for a movie, they're gonna go see it no matter what, and if they like it, they're gonna keep seeing it no matter what critics say. So we also have to take that into account as well. So, but with Justice League, you can tell all around people were disappointed with the movie, so they didn't go see it again and again. It made money. Nowhere near the amount of money they thought it was going to make. They thought it was going to make Avengers type money, because they're like, hey, if we bring in the Avengers guy and reshoot all the stuff and make it look crappy, then hey, people will like it. But from that very first scene of Superman with a terrible uncanny valley face, it was just downhill from there. Other than a few scenes that we know were Zach's, the movie it looked cheap. The fact that because Zach doesn't shoot on digital, and all this stuff you can totally tell was shot on digital. With everyone's faces went pink, it just looked unnatural, and people were like, "Oh, see that? Well, that's Zach's shot." Blah blah blah.
Oh my gosh!
You do not know film if you're saying that all the scenes that you're like, "Oh, those are Zach." See that scene in the Daily Planet where she's talking to Martha? That's Zach. Yeah, right. Zach would totally throw a scene there and have Martha make a thirsty joke and have some random guy try to be sexy. And then that stupid news reporter saying, this woman said an alien stole her man. Yeah, because that's something Zach would throw in there.
So that she could be bleeped all over the place. Yeah, it was so joss. It was very uncomfortable. Ugh. And I feel for Chris Terrio in this scenario, too, just because I feel like his original screenplay was so massacred that we barely got a fraction of it, just like Zach's original vision. And I would truly love to see what he had originally scripted, because it was very unlike what we got.
If someone can seriously go and hack Warner Brothers and get every bit of Zach's footage and put it together, please. I'm not saying do anything illegal, but get that to us. However you can.
Just send a carrier pigeon my way. It's fine.
But yeah, so the whole box office thing, again, I think it's a combination of factors, but the biggest thing was just the quality of the film itself and what Warner Brothers did. Mm-hmm. So, like, again, like, I'll still defend parts of the movie. Like, the cast wasn't the issue. It was the writing by Joss. It was the shots done by Joss. The editing done by Warner Brothers and Joss. Like,
yep, their insistence that it be 2 hours.
The mediocre score by Danny Elfman. Danny Elfman, honestly, he's a mediocre composer as it is anyway.
Yep.
The last theme of his I liked was Spider-Man, and that was years ago. And he can't seem to get out of the past. He's like, hey, you know, you guys really like my Batman theme from like 25 years ago, right? Because that's the only theme that's ever mattered. Okay, I'll do that. And that Superman theme that everyone loves that has no place in this universe, I'll go ahead and do that. Oh, and the Avengers theme, yeah, this fits because it's superheroes, right?
He's a one-trick pony, and it's showing very, very much. Yeah, and so he doesn't have anything new to offer.
Yeah, fuck him.
I'm down with that.
Yeah, I can rip Danny Newman and I can do it in person and not feel bad. The guy's fucking asshole.
He's really full of himself. Like, honey, you don't have that much talent to really think that you're all that. You know, you just don't. Sorry, you've done some good things, but you know, you're not that good. Sit down, calm down, a little bit of humility. Yeah. This is totally off track, but I will say, and I've said this to my husband many times, he knows it verbatim by now, but I have mentioned over and over the respect I have for Hans Zimmer coming in going, okay, Batman. I've already done Batman. I did 3 movies of Batman. I need something else. I need somebody else to help me. Otherwise, I'm going to end up doing the same thing, and this is a fresh, new film that doesn't deserve that. So then he brings in Junkie XL. I have very mad respect for that man who was like, you know what? I need a different perspective here. I'm not the be and end all of everything, and I want this to be good work. You know, I love that man.
What if we just tried to make art, for God's sake?
I know,
right? What if we actually tried to make art instead of just like copying and pasting from other shit? And this is the thing, is that like this is the current problem with soundtracks in the industry, especially in genre films, which is that they all just copy each other, and we're cool with that, and that's not a big deal. And it's like we're stagnating. Like, yeah.
Did you guys see? Oh, sorry.
It's just the path of least resistance, is what it is. It's just that they're being lazy.
And also, and don't you think it's kind of hilarious that like Hans announced that he was done with superhero films, and now he's scoring the X-Men movie.
Yeah,
dude,
but at the same time,
you guys don't understand.
I understand. Sure like, okay, I think that was code. I need a break, honestly.
You know? And
I think he knew what was gonna happen.
Yeah. No, I think it was code for I'm not working with Warner Brothers anymore.
I don't know though. He did Dunkirk.
I really do.
So.
You know, like what is so awesome about that is that X-Men is my favorite, like universe. Like, I know I'm really into DC right now, but like X-Men is my favorite. And then they said Hans Zimmer was gonna be doing it, and I was just like, favorites, like my classic favorite universe with my favorite composer. Like, dreams are coming true, and this is before the merger, so before Disney can come in and just strangle it with their evil tentacles. Like, so excited. And also, did you guys see the tweet that Junkie made on Twitter? And he was like, if the soundtrack is bad or something, there no amount of mixing can make it better. And everyone was like, oh.
All I can picture now is that cat from Puss in Boots. Ooh. But, you know, it's true. And he's right, though, you know. You can only do so much.
I want everybody in that situation to be so petty all the time. It's all I want. Every time that there's anything that remotely petty that comes out, I live. It's like my entire
I do
existence.
too, and I try not to be petty, but this situation, I'm bitter. I am. And when I see the petty, I'm like, thank you.
Do any of you guys follow, like, Larry Fong on Twitter? Because he'll destroy people on Twitter, and it's awesome.
I like him.
And I've interacted with him a couple of times, and like, it even caught the attention of Jackie Earle Haley, who played Rorschach in Watchmen, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and he's so on Team Zach, and that's the thing. Like, the people who work with Zach, despite what a lot of these people want to say, and these like quote unquote feminists want to say. People love working with Zach. I don't think, like Amy Adams, I don't think we should be so... And Gal Gadot of all people. I don't think he'd be so outspoken for Zach if he was a sexist, misogynist, like all these things that people claim he is. Like,
agreed.
I don't think they would be making these comments. Like, if anything, they'd be silent and be saying, "I'm grateful for that experience," or great. They'd say something very political.
For the opportunity.
Like, but every opportunity they say, they're like, "I wouldn't be here because of Zach," you know.
Yep.
Or, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Zach. And then like, or like, Zach helped me get out of my funk, or Zach helped me here, or Zach saved my career, or whatever. Like, so many of these stories about Zach just being an awesome guy and helping these female actresses and actors in general, and it's just, yeah,
he's very supportive, and it always amazes me. I don't understand where he gets that misogynistic, character that people keep trying to apply to him. And I saw something just yesterday that was an interview with Patty Jenkins, and even she was mentioning that she was getting discouraged and credits Zach for providing the right time and the right support for her to even do Wonder Woman movie. Something about she wasn't happy with the script that they had several years ago and didn't want to go in that direction and stuff. And so like, this is the thing. If you have all of these people, and many of them women, coming out and going, "I love this guy and I credit him with serious amounts of help or support or just being an awesome guy," we're not getting that from other people who are accused of all these things and are actually, really, really scary.
Well, it's the difference between the dude who needs to walk around saying that he's an ally and the dude who actually does the fucking work. Yeah. And that's the thing. You wouldn't hear Ray and Jason talking about Zach the way that they do if he wasn't doing the work, if he wasn't providing those opportunities for actors, if he wasn't actually reaching out and treating these people like they should have been treated, over the years. Like, poor Jason Momoa, every time he tells that story about being cast as Aquaman, I tear up. Like, I cannot listen to him tell that story without really crying. Cool. Because it's just such a beautiful thing, and it's so simple, and it's so straightforward, and that's the reason that nobody talks about it, is because it's just a decent thing to do. And the thing is that Zach doesn't want credit for those decent things, and that's how I know that, like, that's the real deal, that he's actually just doing good things. I mean, like, I don't know him personally. I'm not saying that he's an awesome dude on a personal level, because I wouldn't know, but here's the thing: when you don't want credit for those things, that means something. That's currency to me, especially as an ex-Whedon fan. That means a lot to me, because I think a lot of people get a lot of credit for the things that they've said they've done and the things that they showboat about, and that is kind of, not... That's the way that people behave when they have something to hide. And obviously Joss had a shitload of shit to hide, so that just makes sense. Yep. I totally agree there. Totally agree. And I will say, like, when Wonder Woman premiered, I remember distinctly, it was, a couple months after he'd stepped down, and we heard the news about his daughter and stuff like that. He made sure to get on at least Vero, it might have been Twitter too, and put up a picture of them, stuff like that, and say, "Congratulations, Patty, you're amazing." He's very, very, very supportive, to all those around him. And I don't think he spends time going, "Okay, this one's a woman, so I can't be supportive," or "This one's a woman, so I need to be over supportive." He just treats people like people. And I deeply appreciate that, because in the end, that's what it should be. So, yeah. Anyway, I just really loved that he got on there and was like, "Here you go." You're on
Gal Gadot recently received an award. I don't remember the correct name of the award, but she started her speech with saying thanks to Zack Snyder for casting her as a Wonder Woman. I mean, this says something about him, in my opinion.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, and that's why, like, it's just any sort of criticism, calling him a misogynist or whatever, it's baseless, because it's like there's so much proof showing the contrary, but yet you want to ignore it because you want to compare him to Michael Bay and praise Joss Whedon, who was a piece of shit. So
yeah.
So well, thank you for your question. As we move on, I want to take a question from someone who you guys will meet very soon. He's going to be the newest member of the podcast, and I'm trying to find his question because he posted in our group chat. Alright, give me 1 second. God, we talk a lot.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. Alright, so this is from Al. He'll be, again, joining us soon, hopefully. So he has a question. So, do you guys think there's a chance we'll ever see John Constantine in the DCEU? I'm asking since he's actually one of my favorite characters, and the slate has Justice League Dark on it. I've always wanted to see another movie with this character since the Keanu Reeves version didn't do Constantine's character much favors. I gotta disagree about the Keanu Reeves version. I actually find a lot of enjoyment in that movie. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I think it holds up pretty well as just a supernatural kind of thing. I really enjoy it.
I saw
it.
Pretty sure
it's not a Constantine movie, really. I mean, like, it's not a good comic book adaptation, in my opinion. But I've seen the movie like 6 or 7 times, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's again, while he's not like the traditional Constantine in the comics, I mean, I feel like he plays the character well enough. Keanu Reeves, anyway. Like, I don't know. And that's just me. But to answer your question,
I mean, I like what Keanu brings because I love Keanu, but you know, I don't know if it's. I don't think that it's very comic book accurate.
Yeah, but I don't think it was necessarily trying to be a comic book movie necessarily, but more of like a supernatural thriller kind of thing, which is completely fine, especially because now you can like watch like the first season of like the NBC show, and like he's appearing on the various DC TV shows. If you want a more comic book accurate one, he's around. But as far as this question goes, DC keeps saying they're gonna do this Justice League Dark movie, but I don't know if it's ever gonna happen at this rate. Because
it might not, because they're backtracking with Justice League and trying to erase everything, and so
they are so hard.
Yeah,
yep.
And especially go ahead.
I'm afraid that instead of Justice League Dark, we will see Justice League Bright or something like that.
Now with more hope.
Oh God. But that's the thing too. Like with the title like Justice League Dark, which I think is a fine title, but I think it will confuse people in thinking like, oh, this is a sequel to Justice League, and they just want to have it dark, so they just made it dark. So, which obviously isn't the case, but like trying to explain who the Justice League Dark is to like my fiance, who doesn't really know these characters outside of the movie, and I'm just like, well, it's like these like supernatural characters, this guy named John Constantine, and she's like, who the fuck's that? And I'm like, oh, explain who that is. And I'm like, okay, then there's a guy named Deadman, and she's like, are you serious? There's a guy named Deadman? I'm like, wait, hold on. There's a guy named Swamp Thing, and she's like, okay, just stop. I can't. Like, it's kind of hard, like, explaining some of these characters to, like, non-comic book fans. So,
I mean, the Marvel did Guardians of the Galaxy, though, so, I mean,
that's true.
You know, people will be hypocritical and say, what's with DC and these weird characters? But, like, it's already been done, so, you know, people shouldn't be like that.
No, but it's just because like my fiance's like not. My fiance, to be honest, she hates Marvel movies, so she doesn't really. and that was like before she met me, and that was before we were together. So it's not like I made her hate Marvel movies. She just already doesn't like them. But as far as again, as Justice League Dark goes, I mean, like Guillermo del Toro was attached for a long time, and then he stepped off, and then Doug Liman came on, and then he stepped off. And honestly, can you imagine, especially now that we're post like Shape of Water? I haven't seen the movie, but I've heard obviously like nothing but good things about it. Can you imagine like a Guillermo del Toro Justice League Dark movie in the DCEU?
He was gonna do so many great movies that I would have loved, but he like couldn't because he had other things going. Like he was originally supposed to direct the Hobbit movies, but that didn't happen. And so I'm just like, man, you guys, everybody just keeps losing him.
He's fantastic, and we don't deserve him, and he should stay very far away from the DCEU. I value him much more as a person than I do the entirety of Warner Brothers. Fuck him.
I could see him directing that film in the DCE universe if Warner Brothers hadn't completely freaked out and tried to to do a soft reboot. Like, if they hadn't pulled what they pulled on Justice League, if they had let Zack finish his vision, if they allowed Zack to kind of just, move it along and just ignored the haters and stuff, I could see that happening, and that would have been really cool. Right now, I can't really imagine it happening, especially with that director attached, because they're in scramble mode, and we have had so many things announced that then we have heard nothing about ever, and you have to wonder how many of them are getting quietly tucked away in terms of, okay, we're not going to do that now, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. I mean, they are fast tracking Shazam as fast as they can go. They're going for light and funny still. It still seems that way to me. And so I don't know if it'll ever happen, because I don't know if they'll ever have the confidence to go, yeah, we could totally do that. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I just don't have much trust in them anymore.
They don't have confidence anymore, clearly.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they never even had confidence in the first place. Zack was the one with the confidence.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you have a point there.
Yes.
Anyway, for that particular character, I think that the universe would have to get big enough for them to truly feel comfortable bringing in some of the smaller characters like the Marvel Universe eventually did. Right now, because they just barely finished Phase 1 and ended with a whimper on Justice League, I just don't know when that's going to happen. So heaven only knows if we would ever actually get John Constantine,
Well, and what's so crappy is that I think that he had a shot at being like a TV franchise in this, renaissance of DC TV franchises. But since he's been given a shot so recently, they probably won't do it again with a different actor. So, I think that that's one of the coffin nails. I wouldn't say it's out of the possibility, but I think that it's very slim. And there's also the fact that everybody made a lot of noise about whether or not he was going to be bisexual, and then the writers screwed the pooch, and I don't think DC wants to have that fight with us. They're certainly not going to make like a Batwoman movie or anything, so
I'm sad.
I will open that fight up again. I will begin it once more. We will have bisexual Constantine, or we will have fucking nothing.
Okay, now my question to you guys, so if, again, big if Constantine is ever in the DCEU, who would you guys want to see play him?
I don't know him well enough, I don't think, to really pick on a good actor, so I'm going to rely on you guys and your expertise.
Right, fair enough.
Yeah, I'm with Katie. I have no idea.
Yeah.
All right, so Danielle, it's me and you. We got to set the precedent here.
Maybe it's just his resemblance to the actor who played him on television. I don't know. I actually don't think they resemble each other, but the guy in Cloverfield, who the German guy in the Cloverfield movie that just came out.
Wait, the guy from Civil War?
Zemo?
Yeah, Zemo.
Really?
Yeah, Zemo. Yeah.
Huh.
Dye his hair blonde, and I would be very interested in that performance, because he's actually really, he's super talented. He was great in the film. He wasn't great in Civil War, but who was?
That's the thing. They can only do so much.
Vision. Paul Bettany was great.
No, Paul was great, actually. That's true.
Vision needs his own movie. I'm still upset.
I think that if they had any nerve, they would branch off into rom-coms and give us a Scarlet Witch Vision
rom-com
thing. It would be cute.
I love that.
I would enjoy it a lot.
Okay, so I think for my own personal choice, I know this has been kind of like a fan favorite for a while in terms of the DCEU, but and I've really come around on him as an actor is Colin Farrell. Something about the way he presented himself in Fantastic Beasts to me, that kind of I want to say like swagger because that's not the right term, but like the way he carried himself, like to me, I'm like,
yes,
I can see it. Like I could definitely see it, and especially now that like Warner Brothers screwed the pooch of giving his character to fucking Johnny Depp.
Oh gosh, I'm so sad. He was perfect. I'm like, you don't have to get rid of him. Just keep him.
Oh, guys, we're spoiling movies now. We're spoiling the Justice League.
Sorry. Okay.
Sorry.
I do like him as an actor, so I'd love to see that interpretation. I'd be open to
I think that he'd bring a real softness to Constantine, which I think would probably turn me a little bit more on the character, because the character's so brusque, and kind of like, I don't know, one of those like intense faux masculine that borders on insecure kind of feels. I think that Colin would bring a really cool sort of vulnerability to that role, whether he wanted to or not, because that's just like what he brings. It's the quality.
Mm-hmm.
Be cool.
I probably would have the weirdest pick for Constantine, but for some reason I imagine Zac Efron to perform the character.
Really?
Oh my god, that's so weird.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember who that is.
I mean, I don't know how well he could pull off that accent, but I mean, look, Zac Efron can be kind of hit or miss. Like there's some movies of his that I think are really good, and I'm not talking about High School Musical, so that's out of the question.
Oh, that guy. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
He would definitely get on the DC beef train in like 20 seconds. Though.
Oh, he's like already there.
Like,
he's like there like all day, every day.
He would probably get biceps on his biceps.
I know. That's funny. I remember before they cast Zachary Levi as Shazam, people mentioned Zac Efron, and I'm like, you know what? That's not an awful choice. So.
But that's the thing is that like when I think of Zac Efron, I think like he has that ability to bring that cheesy quality, and that would have been a really good choice for Captain Marvel. Mm-hmm. But when it comes, I don't know, with Constantine, that would be a weird quality.
Yeah, I mean, like if he's a good, I think he's a good enough actor. I'm not sure if he would want to do that kind of role. You know, oddly enough, like since we're kind of talking about Captain Marvel Jr. or whatever they want to call him now in the DC reboot, whatever. He could do he'd be like the partner of Zachary Levi. You have two Zachs in there, you know. I mean, you have like the two best friends who are both kind of the same guy. I don't know, maybe. I
think it would be funny.
Yeah. Honestly, and maybe this is kind of segue into the next question, which I'll go ahead and I'll ask now. This is also from Diana Princess on Tumblr. She's like, what are you looking forward to in Aquaman and Shazam? Now, with Aquaman being in post-production, like I'll say that for in a little bit, but Shazam is quietly becoming a really like anticipated movie of mine. Like, I know we're like a little over a year out. We haven't really got a good look at like what he's gonna look like yet, but like the fact that they brought in the guy who directed Lights Out, which I think was a really, really underrated horror movie. And I love Zachary Levi. He's just such a charismatic and cool guy. That he wasn't who I would have picked for Shazam. Like back in the day before he was cast as Deathstroke, I would have guessed Joe Manganiello would have been a good Shazam too. But I don't know, like Shazam, I think, and especially when they cast like Ron Cephas Jones from This Is Us as the Wizard, I think that's fantastic casting. So I'm really looking forward to Shazam personally. I know there's a little bit of trepidation because of Warner Brothers and everything, and I know that's there, but it's hard for me to not get excited, especially I don't know, I'm looking forward to this movie a lot. I don't know about you guys, but that's me.
I know very little about him, and so I'm just gonna go with you guys. And as always, I'll give everything a chance, but I unfortunately have been made excessively bitter at WB over their shenanigans, and so when the little plot recap or whatever synopsis for Captain Marvel came out yesterday, or for Shazam, sorry, you know, all I could do was read it and be like, oh look, this is exactly what everybody wanted Superman to be, when Superman was coming out, and it's kind of pissing me off. So I don't know enough about the character. Maybe this is dead on for his character, and it's just me and my bitter jadedness looking at it wrong. But and I fully acknowledge that. If so, tell me, and I'll go with it. But it bothered me because right now I just have a giant chip on my shoulder about the way my films have been treated and how WB has screwed things in recent years. So
I mean, I'd say yes if they want to make that garbage Superman film that they want to make. Shazam is a great project for them. I don't know if that's rude. I don't like. I don't
make it a Shazam movie. You know,
I don't like Billy. I don't like Billy. I don't like Captain Marvel. I don't like the whole Shazam franchise. I'm not a fan. This is a very hard sell for me, but some of the decisions that they've made have actually turned my head, which is weird because I was expecting to avoid this whole franchise, like the plague. Yeah. I was going to just be like, well, the rest of the DCEU is for me, and Shazam is for someone else. But I'm actually kind of interested, and I think some of the casting decisions have been really good. Non-traditional. I like Zachary Levi. I think that was very surprising, and I dig a surprise when it comes to casting. Also, he's really excited about it, which is obvious. Which, as I've said, is my metric. It's everything I want out of a DC film actor.
Okay. I will totally get. I'm not going to get on board mega excited, but I will do my best to keep my giant chip on my shoulder slightly smaller and give it a shot because I don't want my bitterness to poison everything. It's just that I read that and I was like, what? So, but I'll be good now. So, yeah.
For me, the first most important thing that I expect both from Aquaman and Shazam is not being sabotaged by Warner Brothers during post-production.
I'm very excited about that too.
When it comes to Shazam, I am very interested in seeing how Zachary Levi and the boy actor, I unfortunately don't remember his name. I guess he's Angel or...
Asher Angel is his name.
Yes. You see, I kind of looking at this as, the movies where the switching between bodies happen between characters, and the actors have to become opposite characters that they were playing. And I would like to see Zachary Levi to impersonate this little boy that Shazam is actually, and act accordingly.
Yeah, that could be excellent. I would go with that. So it's going to be lighthearted no matter what, and I should just accept that,
It could be extremely sweet. It could be super offensive and a disaster, but it could also be an extremely sweet movie, especially since he's described it as big with superpowers, which really won me over. I was like, yes, I would watch that movie.
It's true. That's fair. Okay. I will calm down and try not to be so bitter.
And of course, we need Superman cameo in Shazam.
I hope
it's mandatory for me.
I see that.
Katie, if you want at least a little bit of history with Shazam, there's an animated short called I think it's Shazam and Superman: The Return of Black Adam or something like that. It's like a 20-25 minute little short film, and that's basically has everything you need to know about Shazam in it.
Okay.
So it's a nice little short thing. I think it's really cool. So if you're curious as to kind of who this character is, watch that, and I think that's basically all you need to know.
Okay.
But yeah, I think I'm just excited because I like the director. I've liked the casting so far.
Yeah.
Again, the movie Warner Brothers can do the same thing as Justice League, and it'll severely disappoint me. But I have faith in this movie. I'm trying to be on the more positive end.
That's awesome. Go for it. Get out of my bitter barn. Run away. So, no, that's cool. That's totally cool. And I will just say, in terms of Aquaman, I'm not as against that one as I just don't know enough about Shazam. But that one, I just have deep hopes that they don't interfere. But I will go see that one for Jason because I really support how excited he is about this and how supportive he's been to the whole cast and everything else in Justice League. He is a good, he's really, really into this, and I totally want to support that. So I will go see that. no matter what. I will support Jason. If we get a Flash, I'll go see that. If we get Cyborg, I am in the front seat. And so like those ones from the Justice League that I really love their cast members, I will definitely go to those for sure because they deserve that support. Sorry, Danielle, go.
Oh, in contrast to my trepidation about Shazam, I'm planning to be like ridiculous hyped about Aquaman.
Cool.
I'm planning to be through the roof. My expectations will be outrageously high, and that's only because if I were Warner Brothers, I would not want to fist fight James Wan.
Oh,
I think he could take me. I think he could throw me over his shoulder and toss me into a wall. I just feel that way about him. Like, he looks down to fight. He looks like he's ready to swing on you, which is good. I like that quality in a Warner Brothers film director now. It's my favorite quality. Because I just think James is tough as nails, and I trust him to hold up the vanguard. I think he's gonna defend it.
Awesome.
James, like, I was recently watching like some interviews because I had seen Insidious 1 and Insidious 2, and I recently watched The Conjuring, and I'm officially calling myself a fan of his horror movies because the guy made me believe in horror again, to be honest. And I'm really looking forward to the cinematography because he knows how to, like, he's not just about, like, with the horror movies at least, he's not just about, like, oh, let me scare you. He's, like, doing character building and everything. So I really believe that he, like, has, like, his vision set out. And when like in his interviews, he does come off as kind of like a quiet kind of dude, but I don't think he's the kind of person who would let somebody come in and like mess with his movie.
I deeply hope so. I don't trust Warner Brothers anymore, but I agree. He, as a director, made me excited. Jason as Aquaman makes me excited. The idea of Aquaman the movie makes me excited, so I'm trying not to get my expectations too high.
And we got like 16 seconds of Amber, and my entire life changed.
Oh god, I know. That's why, like,
my body chemistry is different after watching her play Mera for 15 minutes. I was like, oh my god. I think maybe I'm probably like 80% gayer or something. I don't know. It's beautiful.
Have you gotten her Funko Pop yet? Because that is also amazing.
No, I'm trying not to buy it, but I might end up buying it. I'm a mess.
It's worth it.
They need to make a rock candy one.
Oh, I know. Those rock candies, I have, like, I got one of those because I used to collect their DC box, and I got like the Supergirl one, and they're actually pretty well designed figures for the most part. Like,
aren't they beautiful? I love them. I love them a lot. So I can't really. I'm not a impartial source here, but yeah, they're perfect. And also, I live with we're two indelicate ladies in my house and a very rowdy cat. And like, so my merchandise collection is always in jeopardy of being broken, and these ladies have hit the floor about 75 times each, and they are fine. So they're also very sturdy.
Wow. And that's funny because like I have like, because I only really collect pops, and like they're like on a high shelf in my closet, and luckily for me, like my cat is afraid of everything. He's like the shyest little guy ever, but he's so cute, and I love him. So like one time I had, I had like my Man of Steel, like Chan on Tumblr gave me like the black suit Superman from Man of Steel from like a while ago that you can't get anywhere anymore. It's like worth like over $100. You can't get anywhere else, and so it doesn't have it didn't have a box for it, which sucks. But you know, it is what it is. But she gave it to me, and one time I had it on the nightstand, and he was just like slowly trying to push it over the edge, and I'm just like, Wesley. He looks at me, pushes it a little, and then I'm like, Wesley, and then he runs.
Okay, now that I have it.
He's like, you want me to stop, but do you want me to keep going? I love him though. So like, I rarely yell at him. He's like the sweetest kid ever. And yes, he is my child. He is not a cat. He is my child.
Cats should be your children. No, my stepdaughter has a cat who is big and fluffy. He's like a Maine Coon. And one shelf on the bookshelf is his and only his. And if she puts things on it, he'll just go up there and knock them off so that he can lay down. How dare you put things in my bed? So yeah, it's Oliver's shelf now.
And it's funny because like my little brother and my parents they just got a Maine Coon like a little over like a year and a half ago. So she's like the exact opposite of Wesley. So she is like she'll jump on anything, she'll bite, she'll kick, she'll scream, and I go over to my parents once a week to do laundry because my apartment complex doesn't have a laundry place on site, so I have to go to my parents' house. So I'll hang out in what used to be my old room, which is now a guest room, and so like I'll have like my laptop and everything set up. So many times I'll go in there, she'll jump on the bed and she'll just sit on the keyboard of my laptop. And I'm just like, excuse you, and she'll just like look at me, and I'll try to move her, and she'll try to bite me. So yeah, and then I'll never forget. It was almost a year ago. My fiance and I were living at our old apartment, and we. I know this is really off topic from DCEU, but I don't care. So we had to stay over my parents' house because the apartment complex we were living in, they didn't know that we had a cat, and we weren't paying pet rent. So. And they were doing like inspections for like maintenance or something, so we had to clear out all Wesley and all of his cat stuff out of the apartment, and we were staying with my parents for a few days, and we didn't want the cats to interact at all because we didn't want to scare our cat, and so we were in my old room, and it was like the last day we were there, and my cat, I swear to God, he's the sweetest kitten ever. Like he's still our baby. And so my parents' cat was like outside my door the entire time we were there because she knew he was there. And she reached her paw under, and my cat, he's never hissed, never done anything. And we're watching TV or something, and all you hear is, and we thought it was her, but no, it was our cat. And we're like, Wesley. And so they have not interacted ever since. So yeah,
mine, go away.
So yeah, I know I got really off topic, but yeah, that's
that's what we do. It's all good.
Yeah. Welcome to the Cat Talk podcast. Thank you guys for listening.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna start because yeah.
I know we could do cat tales for years. Yeah, I know. We could go on.
Yeah, I was on the phone with my sister yesterday, and we were supposed to be talking about her engagement, and we ended up talking for about 3 hours about our cats. So I'm not allowed. I'm gonna keep it to myself.
Oh, and speaking of my cat, okay, and this is DCEU related, so bear with me. Okay, so we have this one mug that he's hardly ever drinking out of anything else ever. He used to only drink out of this one mug forever. And then we went to Disneyland, so we were gonna be gone for a few days. So we set up multiple cups of water, and I have this one Batman v Superman cup. It's like one of those like cheap like $1 cups you can get like Party City or something. That are kind of like the reusable plastic ones or whatever. He now drinks exclusively out of the Batman v Superman cup.
You've indoctrinated your cat. That's awesome.
I have.
Man, awesome sauce.
So
now he needs a little cape or like a little sweater, with the symbol and a cape, right? I think so. Okay, I'm done.
So yeah, thank you for your question. I know again we got really, really off topic, as we always do. So to answer your question, yes, we are looking forward to both. We're a little cautious about them both because of WB, but I think James Wan is going to be beaten by Warner Brothers, and I think he'll stick up for David Sandberg because he helped with Lights Out he was a producer on that. So I think he'll stick up for him as well. And I think David will be able to hold his own as well, since he's been working with Warner Brothers for a little bit now. So I think they'll both be good films. I'm that's just optimistic in me, but I'm excited still.
Totally cool. You are allowed to be. And I will be cautiously optimistic. and try to keep my salt, to a minimum.
Yeah. So I think with that being said, I think that's gonna be it from us. This ran a lot longer than I thought it would, considering we didn't even do a commentary or anything.
I'm like, oh my gosh, is that the time?
Yeah, so just over 3 hours now. But I want to take this time. Thank you guys, everyone who sent a question. I know we went off topic a number of times, but again, it is what it is. But thank you everyone who sent in your questions to John1106, Guardian of the Galaxy, Diana Princes, Al, who's going to be joining us soon. You guys are all great. I'm glad you guys sent in your questions. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you as always. And thank you guys for joining me. I know some of you are probably wondering why the podcast has had so many breaks. Well, the holidays were problematic, and then I had the issue with uploading the BvS commentary, so you guys can expect these a little more frequently now. But I just want to give you guys a heads up, so you guys, we aren't going anywhere, hopefully. But you guys definitely stay tuned, and we'll definitely have some more episodes up for you guys. So thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Artyom. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Fatma. You guys are all awesome, and thank you guys for always doing this. I love talking to you guys about the DCEU.
Yeah, we're definitely going to come back once we will see those 2 extra minutes.
Oh yeah, Superman. A week from today. A week from today.
And then we'll talk about it for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yes.
2 hours.
You know what? Honestly, okay. I don't want to give my money to Warner Brothers, but I might just get the digital copy just so I can see and have it for myself. So that way, I can judge for myself. So I'm definitely gonna do that for you guys. So I'll be the one. I'll be the one.
Bless you.
All right.
I know this isn't like a comedy podcast, but like, would it be possible to maybe do like a read through, like a dramatic reading of Joss Whedon's Wonder Woman script?
Oh,
just for,
my God.
Just for angst
Yes.
and cringe and stuff.
Yes. I don't know.
I might cry several times.
I read the whole thing myself.
You know what? That's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea.
If you can't bear to read the words on the page, and you would like to cringe through a dramatic performance of it, I don't know. If that's something you want, you should comment on this video about it, because I don't want to do this for no reason. But if there were a demand, I don't see why not.
Yeah, if you guys, whether you're on Tumblr, Twitter, YouTube, whatever, if you guys want us to do that, definitely let us know. Because we don't mind spending 3 hours of our time just shitting on Joss Whedon. Because I could do that all day, every day.
Very exciting.
Yeah, so, I'm actually kind of excited now for that. So, guys... Alright, so thank you guys. Thank you, Rebecca, Artyom, Fatma, Danielle, Katie. You guys are all awesome, and thank you guys for joining me as always.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so before we sign off, you guys want to let everyone know where they can find you online?
You can find me on Tumblr as Grey Kongwao, and on Twitter as well.
I'm Katie, and I'm Story Advocate on Tumblr.
I'm Danielle, and I'm a Social Justice League on Tumblr.
And I'm Rebecca, and I'm The Endeavor on Tumblr.
And then, of course, you guys can find me here at Nerdy Nick on YouTube, Sure Man of Steel on Tumblr and Twitter. Guys, definitely let us know whether you want us to read that Wonder Woman script, because, God, that would be a fun time. And also, we should probably make a drinking game out of it, too. That'll make it even a little more interesting.
That would make it bearable at the very least.
Alright, so thanks again, guys, and I'll talk to you soon. And for everyone listening, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who sent in their questions. This is a lot of fun. Expect something from us soon. Might do another commentary soon. The Wonder Woman thing, again, let us know if you guys want to hear us do that. Let us know. And thank you guys for listening, and as always, have a good one.